Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to members of staff and members of council to our budget meeting on Thursday, January 18th, 2024. Call the meeting to order. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest, general nature thereof? Seeing none, motion to accept the agenda. Deputy Mayor Williams.
Thank you very much. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Cadell, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry accepts the agenda of the special meeting of Council on January 18th, 2024.
Thank you. All those in favor? Motion is carried. None opposed. Okay, so moving on to the budget. So just a little bit of a background. What we're going to do today is we'll have Sarah will start it off, and then each of the senior staff will present just an overview of their budgets, operating and capital, and then we'll go through each page after each person speaks and anybody has anything to say. As you know, our finance department's been in a little bit of a flux with our director leaving in November and our deputy treasurer being off with an injury. So if you have questions about what happened last year, please just write them down and we'll take care of them. Either take a look at them on the break, because they're not going to have the answers for some of those questions. If there is something that you see, we can maybe ask, and maybe they'll know, but most likely they'll have to take a look at what it is. Okay. So pass it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So welcome everyone to the budget. So I do want to just take a quick moment to thank senior staff for putting this together. I do know this is a very good document. It was a very difficult year, as Mr. Mayor has suggested. With our treasurer leaving, that did change a little bit of things. She did have a preliminary budget prepared. There were some changes that were made to it following that preparation. I also want to thank our new treasurer, Zoe, for putting together PowerPoint today. She has reviewed it. However, we are going to do a bit of a hybrid model where her and I, plus the senior staff, will be answering any questions. So I'll open up the presentation today. It'll also give Zoe an opportunity to see how this rolls out, and certainly next year she'll be well prepared to present the budget to council. So similarly to previous years, we're going to follow the document as it is presented to council in the Word. So the Word document and the PowerPoint will be together. So for the screens, so this is the PowerPoint here, and then Jenna will be going through the Word document here as we go through. That will be better for people to be able to look at it as well. You have it on your device, or whether you have a printed copy in front of you. So we will be going through each of the departments, so I'll be doing a bit of an overview, and then we'll be going through the operating and capital budgets as the mayor has suggested. And just as we've talked about, this is most of your budgets. You've had many of them. However, we will be going through, and if there's any pluses and minuses, we will be keeping track of them, Zoe and myself. And then we'll be meeting at the end of the day today to kind of go through what that looks like, if there are any. We also like to put parking lot items as well. So if there's something that you bring up that maybe staff needs to look into further, as the mayor suggested, we can do so. As well as, I know in the past we have brought subsequent reports to council on anything that you wanted to have more information on. We can certainly do that. But generally speaking, all of the information and all of the numbers that are in the budget are pre-approved projects. And that's what we've done over the period of time with North Glengarry, is that no new projects are usually brought to this day, right? So if there's anything that council wanted to have in the budget, that's what we've brought forth through council reports or resolutions in the last 12 months. And that's what you'll see in this budget. So in the document, we've done a lot in 2023, despite a lot of ups and downs. So we have our approved asset management plan. So we're in compliance for that until the new reg that ends in 2025. However, we will be looking at doing an update to that in the next couple of months or in the next year. I'm not going to go through these individually. I know that the directors may do so, and they're also in the document as well. But certainly, this is just a quick snapshot of everything that we've accomplished. And certainly, as the CAO, I'm very proud of all of my senior management team for everything they've completed this year. I think we do a great service to all the residents in North Glengarry. As far as the budget goes, as council knows, and I'm not going to go through, you'll notice in the slides, we haven't done our normal dog and pony show where it comes to this is what a budget is. By now, you're all very well aware of what the budget is. But just generally speaking, the municipal budget is made up of both the capital and the operating. So the tax levy that we put out to the residents includes all the operating and the capital expenditures of the municipality, net of any fees, user fees that we have. So the water sewer budget bounces to zero, which you can see in the document. Net of any grants, any long-term debt that we'll be taking out, that's how we calculate the total tax levy, which we see is 6.9 million this year. This year was not unlike other years post-COVID, where we've seen the economy take a bit of a dive. So unless you've been living under a rock, we all know that the interest rates have skyrocketed. They have sort of normalized now, but certainly if you look at the long-term debt schedule, it doesn't take you very long to realize that, when we used to have the debt at 1.86%, we have some on there for 1.86, 2%. Now we're looking at 6-7%. So it certainly changes how you look at how you do your capital financing, and how we as a directors look to long-term planning. So that's all a different consideration from years past. Certainly, we're still seeing those, we call them COVID prices, continue to change as businesses are trying to recover losses due to the shutdown due to the pandemic. So we're still seeing some of those contractor prices going up. I know just recently with gravel, et cetera, those changes have been included in this budget. For the staffing with North Glengarry, as council's well aware, we have 3 separate unions, plus a non-union body of employees. All of those are included in the budget at 2%. However, there are some step increases, and any staffing changes are already pre-approved by council. There's nothing new there. Included in the budget on page 4 are all these assumptions and any rationale that we've included. All of it's a balance, right? So council is legislated to provide certain services to the municipality, the residents. That's our role. However, we have to look at the costs, how we recover. Council sets year after year where certain balances may lay. So how much should we charge users to use the arena versus how much should be through the tax levy? That's year over year. We make those decisions and we move forward with those. And it comes to affordability, right? So that's where we have to look at, we can't charge the full cost of the arena, for instance, to the users based on the types of users they are. And you'll see that throughout the budget as you move forward. Everything that's in here as far as the capital goes, we've used the basis from 2023. So anything that was sort of laid out in the 10-year plan in the 2023 budget was more than likely brought over as a base. We also look at the asset management plan, staff meet, they look at what needs to be done, and changes go from there. And then all the funding comes through the treasurer, and we look at, the basis of which what can come from reserves, debt, tax levy, user fees, et cetera. So you can see on this slide, there's lots of different changes. The insurance rates have gone up. Jen and I met with our insurance company the other day. That's a global thing. Even if you're in personal insurance, it's all going up. There's some changes with automotive that are going to be happening, hopefully. So that may be a change that will go down over the years. Property has seen an increase because of the way that they do the insurance. It's a global economy insurance, so it's not just based on our usage as well. Benefits continue to go up based on usage, based on markets, et cetera, et cetera. So I sort of already spoke to this around the capital funding sources, but some of the other funding sources that you'll see in the budget that are significant is the OMPF. So this is something we will be actually speaking to the Ministry of Finance next week about. So our OMPF amount continues to fluctuate. So it goes up about 1% per year, either up or down. It would be nice if we had a steady stream of money there. We do get a significant amount of money with the OMPF. If that was ever to change, it would significantly impact us. So my hope would be that eventually the provincial government will put forth legislation that we can have some sort of stability around that funding. The OCIF went up a little bit this year as well, so that's great news. That was immediately funded through Till Capital. The CCBF, which I still call gas tax, is consistent as well. We built into the budget the amount that we had from 223 because we did not have the 224 number yet. And then the payments in lieu is another source of revenue when it comes to overall taxation. So payments in lieu are the amounts that we receive from, for instance, the heads and beds for the hospital. Anything that's owned by the Crown, so the provincial government, the federal government, we get payments in lieu. The calculation for that is similar to the taxation, so no different than a commercial or a residential property. However, the government, unfortunately, within the legislation, doesn't have to pay that payment in lieu. They can pay whatever they'd like to. Again, I would like that to eventually change. However, that'll be after I retire. That might change. So from that, you can see I already sort of explained how the tax levy is calculated. That's the total amount, the 6.9 million we're going to see. So you'll note in this budget that there was a bit of a difference in some of the presentation. So I did take out some of the typical charts that we had, things like that. The reasoning behind that was because I think what we really need to do this year is focus on North Glengarry and focus on what we need. So the past is the past. What we spent in capital has been spent. What we really need to focus on is what do we need to levy today to provide the services to the residents, which is what we're legislated to do, right? So that's what we're going to focus on. We all know when we sit around the table that what we send the tax bills out, we all get one. It has the lower tier, the upper tier, and then the education portion. What we need to focus on today is the 5.06% increase that we will be levying to our residents. So that's what our focus is. You can certainly Google what other people are approving across the province. I think what we focus on is what does North Glengarry need to levy our residents to provide the services that we need to. So I won't spend too much time on this because each of the directors are going to go through their individual departments. But the one thing I did want to note is that the property values continue to remain frozen. Now, Councillor Manley was sharing with me a little bit of good information, so perhaps when we speak to the Ministry of Finance next week, we'll have more good news to bring to Council around the property assessment. However, as of the 2024 budget, we are remaining the same property assessment value base, which is based on 2016. So that is absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion, that it's based on 2016, because if you go to the grocery store and buy a carton of eggs, it's certainly not 2016 prices, nor is gravel, nor is a fire truck, nor is anything, right? So that is something that needs to be fixed immediately. Hopefully it will be, based on this good news. So what the values have been included in the amount is just based on any, we know of any sort of buildings, change in assessment. So we did have some exempt properties. So for instance, 90 Main and 63 Kenyon were exempt properties, so now they're moved into taxation. So now that they're commercial properties, we're getting some commercial taxation from that. That's been built into the 62,000 you'll see in the change of assessment. We've had some building, we've had some change in assessments. So if we have residential that goes to farm, farm that goes to residential, commercial to residential, et cetera, that's been built in. So it's a very, very small number. We used to have a change in property assessment value of around 280,000. So it's a significant difference compared to other years. So I won't go through the changes on here in detail. Like I said, it's also in your document on page 3. So the proposed budget, this is also on page 12 in your document if you want to follow along. This is the total summary per department. Again, I won't spend too much time on this. Everyone's going to go through it. Of note is the water and wastewater. Proposed budget is 0. Certainly we're not spending $0 there. It is legislated that we balance that budget. So that's why all of the transfers from reserve, the user fees, all balances out to equal the expenditures for those two departments. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time. The directors will go through. The capital budget, this was a very difficult task this year. So staff brought really great capital budgets forward. I have to say, our senior management team, they don't bring things they don't need. So what you're going to see in the document in front of you are things that are required, are things that are are past their useful life, things that we need to have to continue to be able to provide the services to our residents. So that's what you'll see in the capital budget. There's different projects, which I'll let the director speak to in each of the departments. You'll also see in some of the fleet, which Tim will review, some of the expenditures were pre-approved in 2023. So the 2024, some of the 2024 fleet are not new. So for instance, we're not buying another fire truck. That was the one that was approved in 2023. So sorry, Matthew, you're not getting another truck. I know.
I was willing.
It's already so this is the proposed capital budget. This is just an illustration for council to realize that the majority of our assets, which we would all pretty much intuitively know, are in public works. So water, wastewater, roads, et cetera. That's the majority of our assets, and you'll see that within the capital budget. That's just because of the nature of the business of the municipality. It's not because Tim is our favorite director, although he might be. On page 5 in your document, or sorry, page 8 in your document is the reserve schedule. So you might note, and I didn't send a note to council, that this is a little bit different than what you may have seen in the 2023 budget if you were going to compare the two, not that I think you have time to. But I did have to do a little bit of a reconciliation in our reserves, which I'm going to speak to the auditor about. The original document I had didn't match exactly what I would hope it had have. So what you'll see within the page 8 document, it's not a slide, however, is that we are taking a lot of transfers into the reserves in 224 for projects that were not completed in 223. So although the amount that we're transferring out looks significant and very like we're draining our reserves, what I did was made sure that you understood that there was a carry forward in 223. So that's why I split that out on the schedule. So when I first did the schedule, I was knowing that that would be a question, so I split it out for everyone to see that. On page 9, it shows you our long-term debt. So as council is very aware.
Just a question, do
sorry?
your numbers on your computers match what she's saying in page numbers? Because I have no page numbers.
You're off by a page.
I'm off by a page?
No, sorry. If you say page 8, it's page 9. Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
okay.
Okay, sorry, I went based on the page number on the bottom, maybe not the page number on the PDF. Okay. So the long-term debt schedule, you'll note that the majority of our debt is from the Maxwell Water. If you take that off, we're definitely very significantly within our ARL. So we have lots of room within our annual repayment limit. Again, and I included that in the actual document this year, just for council's reference. And so the ARL is the amount that's calculated by MMAH on the amount that the municipalities can calculate or can take on debt. And that's legislation. If you want to go above that, you can. However, that's not a good idea. It'd be like getting the amount for your mortgage for a house and then asking the bank for more money. It's about affordability, right? So we are well within our ARL on our debt. However, that doesn't mean that we should all sit here today and decide we're going to take on a whole bunch of debt. However, it does illustrate to council that we are managing our debt very well. What we try to do with senior management is as debt falls off, is that new debt comes on. So we have a truck that comes off and on that we try to mirror the debt based on the amortization of the asset. So for instance, if we have a truck that's going to last us for 10 years, that we then amortize that debt over the 10 years so that the useful life of that truck mirrors the useful or the debt that we take on for the payment of that truck. What that also does is means that the taxpayers that are utilizing that truck through the service, so for instance, snow plowing, are paying for that truck through the debt, through the tax levy. So the use and the payment all kind of match. We have also some debt that's going to come off next year that will continue to happen, and then we certainly will have to maybe continue to take on some debt. We typically do that for fleet. That's not uncommon, and it's actually like a fairly good way of funding some of that fleet, being that we've kind of gotten over the years behind on fleet. So it's difficult to build up that fleet reserve as we're needing to replace the fleet, right? So if we use a truck as an example, it'd be difficult to purchase a new truck today and then pay for that truck over debt as we replace that through a reserve. That's a double. And we just don't have the extra money here in North Glengarry to do so. So unfortunately, That's sort of a capital financing decision we've made here. However, we are still within the ARL, like I've explained. So that's sort of a general overview of the budget. As I've mentioned, we are at 5.06%. I can tell you that when the first document came to me, we were not there. We were more in the 13% amount. I worked very hard to bring it down to about a 5%. And then, as council's aware, found some significant errors, which made me go back to the table again to get us down to what I believe is a good number. As you'll see through the director's explanations and what I've said so far, we have some corporate wide increases that put us at a percentage that is high. For instance, insurance, benefits, 2% for staff, and then just some contract increases. That just as a base amount really puts us, at probably our 3-4%. So just keep that in mind as we go through. That staff and myself have really done a great job and I mean, I have to commend my senior management team for coming to me with some pretty creative ideas and some really realistic numbers.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe before anybody freaks out, the residents of the increase of the 5%, maybe explain that if we would have the impact assessment, which is about that percentage, in the past year we never increased the taxes locally, but the assessment was always growing up like at 5-6% per year. So that's why, since we don't have the impact assessment adjustments in the last 4 years, that's why we have to basically put the adjustment ourselves, like to bring us to today. So just so people don't think that we're taking like we're wasting money here. It's just that we don't have it from the government, or the adjustment not made under house value.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So
Just so to put it in layman's term there.
right. So let's say that we would have gotten our normal $280,000 increase. We've already taxation increase for the assessment. So we have the 62,000, which I built in. So if we knock it down to say 180,000, that's a 3%, right? Because it's about $60,000 represents 1% on the levy. So absolutely, Councillor, we would be looking at probably more like 2% if we had that, if not maybe less, probably around 2.5. So, as we move forward into the new assessment years, it's going to change some of the way that it's presented. So we will have that increase in the assessment. So the bottom line will look better. However, the tax bills people will receive will probably be about equal, right? Because their assessment is going up by an amount. The tax rate wouldn't be going up by a significant amount. However, the end result is about the same. Yeah, so it's a bit of a pie mentality where we're trying to come up with a certain amount of money, and we're doing it based on that revenue. So the 62,000 is extra revenue we're going to be getting. So because we're not getting the 200,000 we would normally get, we have to increase the end number. So absolutely, that's a good point. Good. Okay. So really quickly, I'll go through the governance and administration department. This is.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Just a few, because the general overview is done. I have some questions just about.
Yep.
You talked about the carry forward, which is new in this budget, and you explained it, but I don't really understand it. If you could explain it again in terms of why is that in the budget this year and it hasn't been in past years, and the implications of that, because it looks like extra money.
But we have done that in the past.
There hasn't been a carry forward line in the budget previously.
But we haven't done, go ahead.
No. So through Mr. Mayor. So the reason why I did that, Carmen, is because I wanted to make sure that everyone understood that. So for instance, if Tim had budgeted a road last year, so he's carrying forward $700,000, mainly due to the one road that we didn't do, right? We had sort of not sure what we're going to do with that, so we have $700,000 that was supposed to be funded through the tax levy. So what's going to happen with that $700,000 at the end of the year is we're going to put it in a reserve, so the infrastructure reserve, like a savings account. So if you think about it like a personal, your personal like your personal finances, say you budgeted for something, you didn't spend it this year, well, you don't want to just spend it on something else, so you're going to put it away in a separate bank account. So we're going to put it in an infrastructure reserve. Now, he needs to do that road anyway, right? So we rebudgeted that in 224, and we're taking that back out of that reserve to offset it.
Okay.
So I did it this year because there was a lot of capital that was not done for different reasons or underspending in 223, that if I had just put it as we're pulling all this money out of reserve, it looks like we're draining our reserve, and we're really not, because we put a bunch of money in there, right? So the carry forward is 1.3 million that we're carrying forward in a savings account from 223 to be utilized in 224.
Right, and you know, these kinds of things, that happens every year, where money isn't spent where it was planned to. So what you've done is you've just pulled those numbers out so we can see them.
Yes.
It's not.
It's not a difference in how we would normally do it, it's a difference in presentation.
Right.
And the
Okay.
reason is because if you look at the transfers out on your reserve schedule,
Yeah.
it's 1.9 million.
Yeah.
So what I didn't want council nor the public nor anyone to think is that the Township of North Glengarry has decided to drain their reserves by 1.9 million. That's not true.
Yeah, well, and
Right?
that's precisely what it looks like. You're right.
Right,
You're
so
right.
that's why I've split it
Okay,
out. So
okay,
yeah.
so all right, so, because I had all kinds of notes when I first started reading it, with exclamation marks around sort of, whoa, an $800,000 reduction in reserves. Now, what is the actual reduction in reserves then?
So
After using the dollars that are carried forward?
The actual reduction is around 500,000. However, a portion of that is gas tax. So we had some unspent gas tax, or CCBF money, that we had sitting there. So we're pulling out, say, 140,000 of that is old gas tax money that's been sitting there,
Okay,
right? So you can take that off because it's money from the government. We have some water sewer stuff in there. That's like a zero-based budget, right? So the amount that we're pulling out for water sewer, again, you can pull that out. So we're probably only taking out about $150,000 from from the new, and some of that, as I was just going to talk to you, is $60,000 for the roof here. So we've taken that out from a facilities reserve where we're putting the 90 Main sale and the 63 Kenyon sale. So I'm pulling that out from there. So you can,
Right.
there's some new money that went into reserves that we're pulling out. So the actual drain on our reserves is just it's not significant.
okay.
And what I didn't want to do, right, is to pull too much out of there. So it was a balance of me sitting there on my desk with all this huge problem, thinking what I don't want to end up at the end of the day is that we're in a worse position as far as our savings account goes
Yeah, that was.
to save the day for this year.
Right, that was my concern
Yeah,
initially,
and
but
absolutely.
you've explained it well, so thank
Yeah.
you. With regards to the capital being funded through the tax levy to the tune of $224,000, is that, I got that on page 3.
Okay.
Is that a normal number?
Yeah, let me just look, Councillor Williams, before I get there. I just messed up the whole thing. Okay, here we go.
Is that fee changes? Is that what that is?
Page 3.
Fee changes?
And what was, sorry, oh, okay, so the 224.
Yeah,
So what that means is that, and I wanted to point that out for council because it's a very important thing to look at when you look at your capital budgeting, right? So there's something called pay-as-you-go as you fund your capital. So year over year, so if you go to the actual capital schedule, the summary,
what page is that on? Page 13?
Sorry, I'm just gonna pull it up in here because I just put all my papers. That's why I don't like paper. Okay, so on page 13 or 14, depending on what number you're looking at, if you look at how we're funding our capital, so our capital has gone up from 6.7 million to 7.8 million, right? However, as I mentioned before, we had a carry forward from the previous year of some of our projects. So if you go down the fourth line down, the tax base. So in 2023, we funded 1.6 million through the tax base for capital. What we're funding through the tax base for capital in 2024 is 1.8 million. So
Sorry, where are you?
Page 14, one more page now.
Oh, one more page.
This is the-
Oh, here, okay. Sorry, okay,
Way
thank,
down, right down, the bottom there.
oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
So you'll see that the fourth line down, it says tax base, and that's what that is. So what we've done in the 224 budget is there's more from the tax base being funded, or sorry, more capital being funded from the tax base. So certainly the amount that we're overall like increasing the budget by is part of capital, but the offset to that would be that I have to fund it through something else. So it's a balance, right? So either that 7.2 million needs to be funded through something. So it's, you know, are we going to pull more from reserves? Are we going to get more grants? Is there more debt we can take on, right? Like it has to be balanced, right? So what we have done in this budget is say that we're going to pull more from the tax base. Because I don't want to pull from any of the, or I can't in some respects. So I don't want to take on more debt because that's what we did as an exercise through SMT and myself, is to look at the types of assets that we're funding, right? So what makes most sense to fund those assets? So we've funded as much fleet as we should or could through debt. We don't want to take on debt for road projects, right? We have wastewater rates and reserves we can utilize for some of those projects. So we've kind of made it intuitively what makes sense. And so that's where you're seeing that increase, is that the balance of where should these capital projects be funded and where can they be funded.
Thank you, I appreciate that explanation. And so in previous years, that would have been a different balancing act then. I like, what's changed that we're taking sort of more out of the tax levy than in past years?
It's just, like, for instance, there's less grants for this year.
Less grants.
Right? There's, you know, we've taken on less debt. So you can see right off the get-go in 223, we had $1.8 million that we had through debt. This year we have 1.6 million, right?
I
So
see that.
it's a balancing act. It's you know,
Okay.
you have an amount of money you have to spend. Where can we get that cash from? And that's
Okay.
what the balance is.
Thank you, appreciate that.
And practically the assessment, the impact on that tax base would be about that amount?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yes. So to Councillor Massey's point, if we had gotten the increase from MPAC, then certainly that would be reduced.
Cascading problem.
Good. Good. Okay, we're ready to move on to,
Yeah. I just
so
need to.
going to start at governance and administration.
Sorry, I just have all my papers. So there's no major changes within this department. So this is where council's expenditures are, administration, so myself, the clerk's department, the treasury department. Also in here, just some other random things as far as the livestock that we do through OMAFRA, and then anything to do with conservation authorities, crossing guards, etc. I already spoke to the OMPF. The interest on the penalty and interest on taxes has gone down, because our previous treasurer has done such a great job at collecting money. So of course, there's less AR that generates that. However, the converse side of the interest rate being high means we get more money from that from our bank account. So that seems like an offset, the two of them. And there's nothing really within the expenditures of, as far as, or any revenues that really changed with any of those departments. We're gonna do line by line after, if you want to.
Just let her do her thing,
And then we'll do
go
that.
through line by line.
And then within the capital, as I already explained, we have an amount we put in there year over year for computer upgrades. That is typically not spent entirely. And then we are in, if you've drove by and looked up a little bit, we do need to replace the roof on this building. And that was an estimate that Jacob gave us for that. And I'm proposing we fund that through the facilities reserve from 90 Main and 63 Kenyon. And that's,
Okay, so we'll start on page 15, which is the council budget. Is everybody on that page? Page 15? Page 15 in the Word. On my Word. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, on this page, I did go over all the budget, and I noticed that all the major departments followed their budget, like what they were assigned and stuff like that. So when I look at her, on the first page there, the council expenses, see, there's a lot of, like what we budgeted that went completely over. Like there's a lot of stuff that, and I've been thinking this all through the last 12 years I've been here. Like, I know conferences are very important to the municipalities and to councillors and to for us to get out there. But if we, some other townships will limit one conference per year per councillors or per council members, or like I don't think the numbers awarded for conferences is too high. I'm not saying that. It's just that, like, maybe if we try to balance it out a little bit.
Well, I think the global budget's going to be about, well, it says 3,500 here over the 2023 actuals, which are only to December 18th. So there would have been one more council pay in there. So the numbers aren't going to be that far over the budget. And I disagree with you 100% that I believe conferences are a learning experience. We get our chance to meet people at the province. I know that you don't go participate very often at conferences, and that's your choice, but I think that this council has, North Glengarry has always allowed councillors to go. That's just my opinion. I don't know what other people think, but...
To answer your statement, I just don't go because sometimes I feel it's a waste of money on my part. It doesn't matter because, you know, I don't really, but yeah, I understand. It's just that, you know, when I see the doubling the allotted budget or the allotted amount for,
But if you
I
look
can
at,
understand it's
but
important.
you have to look at the global number. The global number is still within the budgeted amount.
Yeah, yes and no, but if you look at all the different other departments, they always respect their allotted amount, but here we seem to have lost control of that. That's what I'm saying. Last year, we agreed $5,500 each. Look at the right of that.
Right?
So, you know, I'm not putting blame on anybody. I'm just saying that what was allotted was not followed. What's the use making a budget when we don't follow it?
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this page? Anybody want to see some changes? Go ahead, Councillor Cadell.
You know, I just wonder why Councillor Martin and myself are so much higher than everyone else. Is that because we were just elected in October and those salaries were included? Because I don't think we went into anything that others did.
With all of the conferences.
And we're the only ones
And
that did
your
that?
travel and everything included in that.
so,
How much for travel?
so as I was going through the 2023 budget,
Yeah.
and the 23 actuals, and I've shared this with our new treasurer. Her and I are going to go through and check the actuals. So although I don't mind talking about the 2023 actuals, for instance, council's aware we have to do the report to council on council expenditures. So there will be an in-depth analysis to make sure that everything's posted correctly. So it could very well be that maybe some of that's not accurate. However, even as you go through, that may be a trend. So Zoe and I are going to go through and make sure everything's in the right place. So it may be as well. We also do get some money back for the mayor and the deputy mayor from the county, and I'm not quite sure if that's included as well. So the overall global number on that may be very well lower, depending on whether or not we've invoiced the county for everything that we normally do. We get so many conferences, et cetera, from them paid, so.
Okay, thank you. Further questions or comments? Councillor Massey had requested a change. Anybody want to go forward with that at this point?
I didn't really request a change, Mr. Mayor. I requested that we follow the allotted budget. That's what I requested.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on. To page 18. We are now at looking at the admin revenues. Are there any questions on the admin revenues? Give everybody a second to just take another glance at it so that we're not rushing through it. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Madden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not a question on the numbers. I'm just curious, Municipal Tax Assistance Act, what is that exactly? Be line 4060.
So Zoe and I have discovered that that's included in the PILs. So what I explained before, the amounts. What it should be, I'm going to tell you what it should be, is it should represent the amounts for the taxation that we pay ourselves. So for instance, the landfill is it's taxable under the Municipal Act. The RARE is taxable under the Municipal Act. If you have anything that's a revenue generating, so if we had a marina, it's also taxable under the Municipal Act. So that's what that is. So that's us having a tax bill come to North Glengarry for RARE and then us paying ourselves. So if we were to sell RARE, for instance, so that, that would be, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions on that page? Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
We appear to be, 20,000 short in our land rental, chip stand rental. Has that just not been received yet?
I'm not sure, Deputy Mayor. I can check
If we
to
can
see.
just
Yeah.
take that down as one of the
Again,
notes.
like I said,
Okay,
Zoe and I are going to go through some of that and make sure that everything's been invoiced, everything's
Okay.
properly, so that, for her benefit, right, to make sure that what's in 223 is actuals, posted correctly, and then we're going to, hopefully, council will be receiving a year-end report, obviously in March, so we'll have better numbers by then
great,
for sure.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further questions or comments at this point? Okay, we'll move on to the expenses, which are on page 20. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor. Sorry, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The line 2131, computer website hosting. Notice that I know the numbers are not completely at the end of the year as of December 18, but if we drop that proposed budget to 80, are we expecting a big 80,000? Like that one, yeah. It seemed like the previous years.
Number 2131.
Yeah, we weren't that high, so if we nick $5,000 off of there.
Sure. Again, I don't know. Kim increased it. I'm not sure if there's a new software that she was anticipating or whether there was additional costs, but if you want to reduce it by 5,000.
Well, it's just that if we're trying to get closer to 5 than 5.06, we gotta nick, I know, I'm not gonna start nicking $1,000 here and $1,000 there, but I think that's a fair place that we could nick it 5,000.
So 5,000 on that,
It's realistic.
Sure.
okay. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
So I think some of these questions I'm going to ask just now are probably going to be parking lot questions, but because there are a fair number of significant variances in the expense lines in the administration budget. I'm looking at, well, I'm looking at 2131, I'm looking at 2200, I'm looking at the legal fees at line 20 to 10.
Just quickly first on legal fees, we can never budget for that.
Yeah, that's very low right now. However, we've seen the past, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that may not even be completely up to date based on.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, there's a whole bunch
Yeah,
of them,
and I can speak-
including line 2366, which is hugely over budget. So I just, like, I don't know what you can answer today and what needs, you can bring as an answers
Yeah, so
moving forward.
I think it's certainly important to check line over line, and we are going to be doing that. I know, for instance, in the audit, in speaking just briefly to the auditor, there were some additional days that were spent on some asset management, so that may very well be less for 224, or the 223 audit. It may also be that some of the audit was posted to the wrong year. Again, we need to do some of those changes, but I think what's of note is that overall we're within budget, right? So I think there has been some pluses and minuses, and I think there's some entries that are not done to move some things to capital. So for instance, on the building maintenance supplies, I'm not sure if that's all of my actual like building costs or whether that should be allocated somewhere else, right? So it's difficult to say too much, but certainly, Deputy Mayor, if you want to send me those line items, Zoe and I'll look into it for sure.
Yeah, okay, I'll definitely do that, because the significant ones require some
Agreed.
explanation.
Agreed.
Yeah, thank you.
And again, once we get to the end of this meeting, we'll get those answers, and we still have an opportunity to, at our next council meeting.
Agreed.
To, maybe make some adjustments based on the information that we get.
Great, thank you.
Any others on this page? Just go down to the capital budget for 2024. Township office roof at 60, computer replacements at 20, for a total of 80. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councilor Manley.
Yeah, the only comment I have on computer replacements is maybe we don't go with Dell again.
We actually purchased these through the county. And I agree with you. Mine's almost dead.
Roof replacement, you quoted shingles, I'm presuming?
Yes.
At that price? Any thought or any interest in doing something a little more permanent and spending a couple of bucks now?
What's that? Sorry, I missed the question.
The roof, the roof for the building, instead of doing shingles, if we spend a bit more money and do metal and not have to do it again. Because we'll be doing it again in 10 or 12 years.
Yeah, that's totally up to council. I did some quotes for both steel and shingles. Shingles was about 60,000 and steel was about double that. So it is long-term for sure with steel, but it's about 100. And here I discussed with the CAO, steel is better long-term, but over here, if you're standing in front and you have all the freaking snow coming down at the same time, it can be dangerous for us to at the back there. So anyway, that was part of the discussion. That's why we put in shingles for the quote.
Yeah.
Ouais, mais...
It's a thought.
I agree with you, however, it was where, like, that's where it was some of those hard decisions, right? So,
It's it's a full percentage.
No, I agree, but to me, that would be money that would come out of building reserve. You know, we've got that and we're gonna spend it
And
now.
what's the
because we're
amount
not
left in the
spending it.
building reserve?
oh, we have money in the reserve,
Yeah,
for sure.
1 point.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I agree with Councillor Madden that I think that we should go with the tin roof with the snow stops. I have 300 feet of mill with the same better slope, it works. And then, yeah, take it out of reserve, or maybe the building sales, the sale. of
That is
That's
the
where it
building
is.
reserve.
Okay, yeah. I
Over to here.
It's not the year. I don't think it's the year to do it. We're being squeezed here.
Jeff? Is there, I mean, it looks bad. Do we have leaks right now?
We had one, we repaired it where the furnace were on the roof. There's no leaks now. It's not, it's not leaking from anywhere, but it's going
It's
to
going
soon.
to,
Yeah.
Okay.
I think being maintenance or whatever, I think if we're looking at that and we're deciding that we want it to be tin, and I agree, it should be a metal roof. And I'm not sure that we might be able to get a better deal than double the price. Because I know when we did ours or whatever, it wasn't that much more than shingles were. And, yeah, it'll be, so I'm in favor of taking it out of reserve if we, yeah.
I think when we look at the cost of borrowing, if we're gonna have to, I don't think it's gonna be double. I don't know, I'm not an expert. But if we have it in reserves, rather than if we were to look at that and in 15 years, how long shingles last? 15
You're
years.
lucky if you get 15.
And with
I
the
think.
wind and everything, the excessive winds and everything we're getting lately.
Councilor Cadell, would you like to weigh in?
I'm with you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
We're
so
fine with that.
we'll,
That's what I wanted, but.
Okay, so,
Reserves are everything. We don't have to borrow money.
Okay.
so we'll pull it out of that
Agree.
reserve?
Yep.
And it's done. We're not doing it again.
Okay, you don't have to yell. We already said yes.
It's, his shirt is yelling.
Yeah, his shirt is, yeah, that's yelling loudly. Okay, thank you, good discussion. Okay, we'll move on to other services, which is on page 21 or 20 and crossing guards.
You have no choice.
I know, I'm not saying anything, I'm just gonna let it go. Ambulance, rent and expenses, we make money there, so,
And we are looking at that, the chief and I, to redo that lease. It's overdue, so
okay,
it should go up for 224.
go ahead.
Just looking at the RRC, I know we had pre-approved our budget, I think, in November. And is that number the one that they communicated with you?
Yes.
And why was not 2023 higher than what they had told us? Is there a reason for that? Because that's kind of funny that they would not, something happened there. Maybe something was put in that, can you check that?
We'll check, yeah.
Okay.
So we and I are going to go through anything that's very obvious like that, that should equal, we're going to look into it.
And also, Mr. Mayor, I know the revenues, the livestock and poultry grant, I don't know what that is. Is that something we used to get, or?
No, well, no, I'd love to get it away, but, so we have to look after through OMAFRA.
Okay.
So if someone's sheep is.
Remember, we used to get
Yeah.
reports, we just don't see those reports anymore.
No,
where
so-
somebody's
Okay.
killed by a coyote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so nobody claims anything anymore?
Well, they do,
They
we just don't
do.
bring it to council anymore because.
Okay.
It's supposed to equal.
Okay, so that revenue at $100, was not adjusted?
Yeah, so
Okay,
it's more than likely we
okay,
haven't got the
okay,
money back
okay,
from the government
okay.
yet.
So basically they offset each other?
It's supposed to.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, moving on from that. Gonna move into everyone's favorite department. Just Really just trying to make you feel good. Building and bylaw. Actually, why don't we just wait a second for Councillor Williams to come back? You want to do that now?
Had to take a phone call, so I will take over chairing this meeting while he is away. I think we are on item number 3, which is building, is that correct? Building,
Wait.
bylaw, and planning. So I'll pass it over to you, Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So as you know, our department has like 3 branches, the building, bylaw, and planning. So budget-wise for building permit, for the building department, it's very much reactive, so we don't know how many building permits are gonna be applied for and et cetera. As you see in the numbers there, we do have a similar amount of building permits as the previous year. The amount is a little bit lower, so I guess a little bit closer to the pre-COVID era, which is kind of normal. We do expect building permits to go up a little bit, especially with subdivision going on, and there's like everywhere else, expectations of more dwellings being constructed and et cetera. So that number should increase a little bit. Over here in North Glengarry, we're, I guess, lucky for building permit. We always have the same amount of permits, I guess, for agriculture and commercial and stuff like that. So we always have that base. It's really just residential that makes the big difference, really. But it's very similar to the past years. So for staffing in that department, as you know, there's me. I act as the chief building official. We also have Michelle, deputy chief building official, 2 or 3 years now. It's going really great in that department. With Michelle, what I find, so as you see, we did count our inspections. That would include like pre-construction inspections and meetings here and et cetera. So as you can see, it's pretty low before, and now it's starting to be more like close to, I guess, 700-800 inspections per year. So with Michelle, what that does, we do a lot now. What I find, a lot of meetings or consultations or on-site meeting with the taxpayers before, so they know exactly what they need. So like when you're alone, it's harder to do that because you don't have the time, and then there's a lot of back and forth with owners. So what we do, Michelle's very good at that too. We go on site, we meet with the person, and there's less back and forth. So there's more inspections, but what I find is that it's a better service for the person applying for the permit. He knows exactly what he needs and what he needs to do. So it's going well for that with Michelle. He is getting old though, so we may see some changes in his in his hours. Michelle. So anyway, we may see some things moving. He's starting to talk about pre-retiring and stuff like that, but we're doing what we can to keep him on board because he's very good, and it's working well with him. And the bylaw department, as you know, in this, our biggest challenges for that are dogs. That's probably our biggest one. I will say it again that the way we deal with the dog and the dog pound and stuff like that is still a success. I've talked to other bylaws from other townships, and more townships, I think, are trying to do like we do, which is have it in-house. We're lucky in the sense that Todd wants to do that, because if I would be the bylaw enforcement officer, I would never deal with dogs like that, but he likes that, and it's working very well. So that's still good, and we're, like, as you see in the budget, we're saving a lot of money as compared to what we did before with the way we used to do for dog catching and dog pound, etc. Our second major concern in bylaw is parking. As you know, we did pass the AMPS bylaw, so this it's starting to make its effect, I guess. But that's, like, Todd is very good with parking as well, so you will see a little bit of an increase in fines. And the increase mostly comes from parking fines. So I know the roads guy like it because there's less cars in the road. So he is very good with like giving warnings, but some people like the fines, the YAMS thing is working really well for the fines. And the last branch, planning. This is also going good, I think. We have our administrative assistant, Chantal, here. She's very good with all the paperwork and everything dealing with the taxpayer who come in, needs to fill the application. As you know, we do not have a planner in-house. We do, like in Chantal, we do the zoning administration, if you will, but we're not planners, so we have hired the counties. Peter is, like, I have nothing bad to say about our relationship with the planning department at the counties because it's going really well. He's, like, we did receive his bill. It's a lot less than what we expected at the beginning of the year. So he, like we, of course, as a lower tier municipality, we always deal with the counties. So Peter's good with, like, when he comes in, we do a lot of files at the same time. So it's not like he charges us minute per minute on when he's working for us. So it's working really well, I think, especially them being the authority for the severances. So we work really well together, I find. And just a little quick note on this here. So we have the site plan and subdivision guidelines that we're also working with the counties and the 6 other townships. I will present that to council soon. They have came up with a draft. So it will be the same across the entire SDG county. The same thing for zoning bylaw. We did receive the draft, so we have to read it, and that will have to pass a public meeting when we pass it. So these two things are also coming along for next year. So as you'll see in the numbers for I talked about building, but for planning, very similar to the previous years. Bylaw, same thing. Some of you noticed their number for dog licenses went down. This is just because, as it's mentioned in this year, we have a new software, a new permitting software, and on the software we can easily work with it. They're really good over there. It's CGIS, and we now have our dog permitting system on that software. So Kim is working hard at cleaning our dog licenses, our dog tags and stuff like that. So a lot of people, as you see, about 100 last year, they had a dog license, but they didn't have a dog anymore. So we're cleaning that out. We're just trying to have the actual number. Should balance itself because we always have the new ones, but some people are paying for dog tags and they shouldn't be, so we're sending out a letter. So these numbers will change a little bit, but I guess it's still a good income for dog licenses. And just goals and challenges quickly. Outstanding building permits is always an issue for all the townships. Since we have implemented the performance deposits, we do keep it's 4 years, so after the 4th year we keep your full deposit, and the township does make about $10,000 to $15,000 yearly with outstanding building permits. So people don't have to renew their permit after, but they don't get their deposit back. So it's a fair way to deal with that. Just easier for paperwork as well. We don't have to charge again. So yeah, dog, comprehensive zoning bylaw. And so as the slide says right here, no major changes for our budget, increase for the website and the computer software, a little bit of an increase in vehicle maintenance, and revenue increase due to account for additional income from permits, but that we're going to see how it goes this year, but we do expect a little bit of an income. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that overview. Before we start going line to line, does anybody have any questions about Jacob's overview? I have a question, Jacob, with regards to the clear cutting bylaw.
Yep.
You say that you're happy with the bylaw and it's doing its job, but I see here it says follow-up inspections are still hard to conduct as the delay for the cutting is long. And that's where the enforcement is required. So what do you mean by that?
It's just because when we issued a permit, I think we've issued 4 last year, and the process is good. for me, I think the amount is not high enough because it's I think it's $50 an acre up to $500. So all the clear cutting permits we've issued are more than 10 acres. They're all like in 40, 50. So we've had not issues, but neighbors around that were asking questions about boundaries and everything. And the companies that do the clear cutting are really good. When you go to them, you ask them, can you please like do a survey or that? That goes very well. The neighbors are happy. What I find is hard, like I think we're 4 last year, and the year before I think we had 3. So I went back to the property, and it's hard to see where it's been cut. Like you were never sure, and it's so long past that the owners are not sure what the application was. So that's why I find like maybe I should go like every 3 months or whatever. So I just need to figure that one out because it's so far back that I don't remember. Like even though I have the file, you never know what. So that's what I mean by that. It's just because they have 3 years to do the clear cutting. So some of them are not even started yet. So that's what I mean with that.
Yeah, well, I can imagine. I mean, some of the requirements, I remember that we put in there to clean it up properly and to dispose of
Yeah.
the material correctly and in a timely fashion. You haven't been able to track that then?
We did, and
Yeah.
the ones that are, I guess, easier to track is when the neighbors help us with it, because
Right.
they will keep us
Yeah.
up to date, and they will let us know, like, we had a pile of, like, someone was pushing, like, rocks and wood and whatever, so the neighbor just called us, we talked to the company, they cleared it up the next
Wow.
day. So that's the easiest way, when the neighbors are on it like that, because we don't have, like, the manpower to go
Yeah.
every couple of weeks, but why?
Well, that's good. So it has reduced neighborly issues then? this
I did, yeah,
bylaw.
I think it did. I didn't hear any complaints about, like, people,
That's great.
what?
I'm happy to hear that. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Massey.
So Jacob, what I'm hearing from you is that that $500 maximum fee, like you're saying that, and I'm hearing you, like, if you gotta go every 3 months, that fee's gonna cost the township money. So maybe when we're looking, if we are looking at, maybe we should put a minimum fee or over 10 acres of $1,000. So because you're saying that with your inspection, you're kind of limited with $500. If you got to go there 5 times, it's practically, yeah, okay.
Exactly, yeah,
Okay.
it's not a lot, and, like, it's, to be honest with you, like, you know how much clear cutting costs.
Yeah.
$500 is
Yeah, yeah.
a joke, right? So
Yeah.
increasing it a little bit would, like you say, would offset for my fee to drive down
Okay.
there and for the application. So I was going to bring it up sometime because I don't think it's high enough, to be honest, but
Okay.
we'll review that eventually.
Okay. And then also, like, anyways, when we come to that, I have another point on that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, very good. Go ahead, Sarah.
So Councillor Massey, that may be a good topic for the rural committee as well. They did want to speak to the clear cutting, so maybe the fee could also be included in our discussion, and then it goes through them to come to council. Does that make sense?
And yeah, absolutely. And just quick note on that, no farmers have expressed any real major concern. They're really happy on the way it works. They send it in, fill out the application, we send it back, we mail it to the neighbor. So it seems like it's working well,
That's great. Good.
I think.
Okay, thank you. Any other general comments? Okay, then we'll get into the line by line. On page 28, starting with revenues. Does anybody have any questions or comments? It's pretty straightforward.
The only question I got is on the, just a differential in the, our actuals from 23 and our proposed. Are we just going back on the building permit, sorry, line 7200? Our actuals for 23, and I understand it's up to December 18th, but it's about almost 70,000 different to what we're proposing for.
Right.
Yeah,
Jacob?
yeah, we're expecting an increase. I don't know how much. Yeah, we were, like, it's more of an average since 2020, I think. We just put that number in. We had a slow year last year because of, as mentioned, costs of everything. that's purely an estimate, so it's really hard to know.
Just want to know what we budgeted last year kind of thing.
Mhm.
Okay, good. So you think it should stay at
We do have some big projects that are coming, so I think we'll definitely see an increase in that, and like there's some big projects that are brewing right now, so we will see an increase. I don't know if it'll be that high, but.
Okay. Anything else in revenues? Otherwise, we'll go to expenses.
Clothing allowance, what?
Yeah, I'm gonna bring up 2021.
What's that?
I'm gonna bring up 2021, which is the work boots and clothing allowance.
Well, thank you.
I'm okay with it this year.
Thanks. Thank you. I'll try to spend a little bit more next year just so it matches.
Good.
You don't have to wear the same shirt every day.
I have 5, actually. It's not the
Oh,
same.
okay. Okay, are there any other questions or comments on expenses? If not, then we'll move on to bylaw, which is on the next page, page 29, starting with revenues. Any questions or comments there? If you don't have a question, just make one up. Okay. Councillor Madden.
Just, we have a new line there for amps revenue, and then we have parking tickets. Are those essentially the same, or are we looking at amps as more like property standards and then parking tickets?
Yeah, AMPS is more of, so the way, with the MTO, the ARIS thing there's, parking is still completely different from all other bylaws. So parking fines will stay in, enforcement violation. We'll still keep them in there. And then AMPS, it's really going to be like the grass cutting, the dogs, all the other fines were given out from AMPS. Because it could be, like, it's very easy to give out fines now, so we could have a line for every bylaw, so we're just gonna keep parking separate, and then all the other bylaws will go in AMP.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, thank you for that. On to expenses. I don't see any hands up, so on to expenses. Any questions or comments there? Looks pretty straightforward to me. Oh, he's getting off easy.
May we, may.
Okay. If there's nothing, then on to septic system, septic systems revenues and expenses. Do you have a question, Councillor Massey?
Maybe a comment, Ms. Deputy Mayor. I didn't write anything down because everything's on budget. So, good job.
That's why there's no questions, it's just,
Okay, so nothing on septic systems, animal control. That's pretty straightforward too. Nothing there? Yes, okay, go ahead, Councillor Massey, then
Yeah,
Councillor Madden.
Just on the expense side over there. So, on the consulting fees, I know that's a tricky one because it can go up and down depending on the,
Animal control.
sorry. Where the hell am I? Oh, okay, yeah, no, never mind. I
Never
got-
mind. Okay, Councillor Madden, go ahead.
Just, and it might be an oversight, I just saw this, kennel permits.
yeah.
We have nothing in actuals, but we had 16 on the table initially. What happened there?
On the, in the expense, Mike? Sorry,
No,
Councillor.
on revenues. We have zero
Wait,
to.
yeah, sorry,
Excuse me, on
I
actuals.
was going to mention, they're all I have to make sure, but I think they're all included in the dog licenses.
Okay.
And we may have some also, and I was going to discuss that, we may have some also in the bylaw business license. I think they're a bit
Okay.
everywhere, but yeah, we'll rectify that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, good question.
She knew, she knew about the
Yeah.
issue.
She's setting you straight already?
Wait.
That's good. Okay, any other questions or comments with regards to animal control? Okay. Moving on to planning and the revenue side.
And if I just may comment to explain something, you've got 14,000 there. So, some of that is, like, again, I'll check with the treasurer, but some of that is supposed to be in part lot control. And so, I think we've even got some zoning bylaw in there, so we just have to clear that out. The final amounts are very close, but it's not in the right account, I think.
Yeah, and Deputy Mayor Williams, also, the cash in lieu on Parkland, council will note in 222, there's 14,000 there. I spoke to the treasurer, and that is supposed to go into a reserve. So there will be a reserve report to come to council. I've identified some of those in my review that should have been moved. And so if any of that is actually cash in lieu of Parkland, it does go into reserve that has to be utilized for recreation and parks. So that would be zero, should be zero on here.
Okay, that's good to know. That's a good news for you, Anne. Okay, on the expenses side. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Carmen. Just on the consulting fees, like I was saying, I know it jumped from year to year, but we seems like we're using under 1,500 at the max, or 2,000. Maybe if we drop that down -5.
That, Councillor Massey, there's some missing because we just received an invoice from the counties
Okay.
for their
Oh, yeah,
services.
okay.
It's not up to 10,000, but it's closer to 5. So with the full year, we can lower it, I don't care, but it's gonna be closer to that. I think we're still not sure how
Okay.
much money we're gonna spend with
Okay.
Peter.
That's fine, yeah, thank you.
Also, Councillor Massey, that also could be for other consulting we have in the planning department. So when we did the site plan for IHA, we hired JL Richards. It's an offset as well as revenue. So usually we're well below it, but I would, again, it might fluctuate.
Okay, that's good. Any other? No? Okay, seeing none. Wow,
I'm off.
you did get off lucky.
That's why I wanna be in the morning.
Okay, well done, Jacob.
Thank you.
And which brings us to the Community Services Department. For departmental overview, go ahead, Anne.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I'll start right off with the challenges, and that applies to all departments. As you know, we deal with facilities in large parts, and inflation has not been kind to us. Labor costs when we contract out services have not been kind. So you'll see that most of the overages that have happened are a result of projects or facilities having to be maintained. And that also applies to some of the projects that we've done in the community. The first thing that you will find on page 32 of your booklet is a chart that shows that these are the funds that are distributed to the community. Most of them have been approved by council, actually all of them are approved by council, and some of them are new, as the Glengarry Sports Hall of Fame. That was an addition that was done in 2023, and we'll see it again come back in the budget for 2024. But council is very supportive of organizations like our municipal recreation associations, and a large part of the funding goes to them.
I'll just, are you moving on? Okay, I'll just stop you there for a second. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this? Go ahead, Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And a question on the line that says July 1st, Christmas and carnivals, and there's $27,000, almost $28,000 there. Is there a better breakdown of that and what?
So through you, Deputy Mayor, we could definitely bring that to council. Most of it is fireworks, costs related to July 1st, cost related to the Santa Claus parade, and also the lighting of the tree in Maxville and the Santa Claus parade in Maxville. There are incidentals, like we supply candy, so on and so forth.
Right.
So, but ironically, every time we purchase candy, it's $1,000, so it accumulates quickly.
Right.
We also have like Dalkeith, carnival time. So yes, it does add up, but we're happy to bring that information back.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Massey.
Yeah, so as we, thank you, Gordon, as we expect that this line item is not gonna go down anywhere near the 15,500 allotted, can we more realistically put it at 20,000?
What do you,
Oh, well, what did he talk about this?
So page 32.
Oh, sorry, I'm, like always.
well, at least you're ahead and not behind.
I'll continue.
I have a
Sorry,
question.
that threw me for a loop there.
So Anne, community centers and libraries, I thought the community centers were funded through the rec associations.
So actually, there's a special line item there. This has to do a lot with the water legislation, some of the small repairs that have to do there, and you'll see the breakout in the budget in the line by line.
Oh, that's the water thing. Okay, okay, I get that then, thank you. And the Legion and senior support, this is a standing item at that amount?
Absolutely. Well, it varies from year to year, but it's part of the administrative budget, so it is a line item in the budget.
It is a line item?
Yeah.
And what exactly do we fund?
So repairs to the building, so that's a Legion building here in Alexandria.
So it's exclusively repairs?
Yes, mostly.
Ah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions on this particular item? That's, go ahead, Councillor Cadell.
What, 46,000 for the Glengarry County Archives, do you know where that money goes?
So through you, Deputy Mayor, absolutely. So this is an agreement between North and South Glengarry to support the Glengarry County Archives. It's to maintain the building and any incidentals, if they have to buy extra shelving, so on and so forth.
And we're just half of that at 46,000?
Our portion is $46,000.
So, seems like a lot of money.
Well, with my experience, when I look at facilities, just the cost of heating of a facility of that size would be sizable. And I know that if we had to send our records away as part of a records management system, it would be a lot more money than that yearly to archive our records with a specialized company.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, then we'll move on. Go ahead, Anne.
Thank you. So working with the community is wonderful, and these are dollars that directly affect the standard of living for our residences. I know that, especially with the work that we do through the municipal recreation associations, they maintain, several of them maintain buildings in small communities that are valuable to the life and the quality of life there. You will see that they yearly come back to council with capital expenditures, planned capital expenditures, and they use their operating budget, which is minimal if you think that it's shared across 10 organizations, to really create a wonderful place for our residents to live in those hamlets. We've been able to improve the Apple Hill facilities, so the sidewalk was rehabilitated. I know that there's some repairs that are planned for some of the posts outside that building. Glenn Robertson continues to improve the interior. They're making changes to their bathrooms. I know that the facility in Dunvegan, there were repairs that were done to the parking lot, and there's some money that's being kept from this year, moved over into kept from 2023, moved over into 2024 for some roof repairs. So they're really managing that money well. They are good stewards of the funds that are shared by council with them. There are several purchases of sports equipment to support the community again, and we also support in kind. So activities like Journée de la Femme would not be possible if we weren't able to give them the facility at no cost. Last year they came into the Glengarry Sports Palace and they operated over a 2-day period, the installation, so on and so forth, and they had access to the full facility at no cost. If we were to rent out the facility, the cost would be anywhere between $1,300 to $1,500. So these are ways that council sees fit to support the community activities. One of the difficulties that we do face is that grants are far and few between now. So we've seen in the past where they were able to, possibly if they had a tourism activity, they could qualify under a tourism grant. Most of the tourism grants now concentrate on heads and beds, so overnight accommodations. So our organizations don't really qualify for that. So our goals, we want to continue to ensure accessibility in all of our buildings and the health of those buildings. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that report. Does anybody have any questions on the general report before we get into the budget items?
I would like to make a request. I don't know if there's any grants available. I'm still trying to get some lights lit up for my soccer field in Maxville. And I've seen grants for multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars available. If we can get grants that will not add any funds to the tax base, can I get an okay from council to allow Ann to go ahead and look for Trillium grants or any kind of capital grants that might get us some money for some lights or a project like that?
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Manley. Comment on that?
I think that needs to go through the recreation master plan that's coming. I think that should be a request that goes through there or whatever. So we look at the whole recreation for the whole municipality and what do we need and where do we need to be looking at applying for grants for things within the township or whatever. That's my feeling on it.
Okay, other people want to comment on this? Sarah, did you have something you want to say?
Well, I was just going to say, like, we've spoken about other projects that have come to us, and I think that was the direction from council, was that staff bring back the recreation master plan, and then we go forward from there, because we do have other things that, for instance, the GSP needs to be finished. We have other things that are flowing through, and I think Councillor Martin, certainly that's an important project, but I think we have had other things come through even in the last 6 months, right? So we need to have that rec master plan come through, and then council make a decision on where we start to apply for some of these grants that are coming through. There are grants that come year after year, right? So, for instance, Trillium is a year after year grant. So I think there's an opportunity to kind of better make a decision that's informed than go forward, so.
Yeah, I tend to agree. We do need to address your request, Councillor Martin. There's no question about it. But I agree, we need to do it in the context of an overall plan so that we're not applying for grants sort of willy-nilly, but that there's a plan for it. I don't know, the mayor is back. I'll pass the chair on to him in just a second here. But I do wonder what happened there, because there were dollars allotted to Lights for Maxville, and then, and I don't recall exactly what happened. It was that I think the Glengarry Soccer League said they didn't need them or something. No,
No, it was supported actually through the MRA that at one time, it was about 5 or 6 years ago, that GSL did back the project. Like they gave
Okay.
their blessing to it, but funds were reverted to fix up the pickleball court that was being used regularly. That fell into ill repair.
And that was a decision at the MRIC that money be diverted to that
Diverted,
project?
yeah.
It could have
Because-
very well have
be-
sat there and
Beca-
waited to do
Because
it.
we were told that the Maxville Light project had been thrown under the bus and,
Well, yeah, I'd heard it had been shelved, no?
but anyway, regardless, I mean, it's a project that's been going on, like, since I've been working on this, trying to get lights for this thing and this reserves that were used up. They'd been in, if you could check back, they've probably been there 10, 15 years. They were just kept carrying forward.
Remember, yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
cleaned up, and we just cleaned it up because this was a project that had to be done.
Agreed. And I
So-
think it's part of a bigger plan when it comes to recreation, especially GSL as well. Like I know Apple Hill is a new area that the senior league started to use, right? And there's, I'm not sure about the
But
lights
they
there.
started
so-
to use that out of necessity because it was other,
Agreed.
like
But
the
it's
Greenfield.
not something that I think we decide today, right? So not
No.
unlike what I opened up with, it's a decision that, the things that are in here. So we need to go back to the recreation master plan because we've heard other recreation needs that are in the community, and I think we need to make a better decision, informed decision.
Okay, agreed. Councillor Cadell?
Did I not read in the budget that there's 25,000 in reserve for the lights at Maxville? That's not in here?
It was there.
It's still in there somewhere.
Okay, go ahead, Anne.
So
Can you answer
actually,
that?
through you, Mr. Mayor, so last year when there was a call from the community to fix up the asphalt pad in Maxville, I went back to the Maxville Recreation Association, said there would be a way through the MREC to be able to fund a project in 2023. The challenge was there wouldn't be enough funding. So we asked council permission to use the reserve for the lighting, which was $20,000. And you'll see that in the reserve. You'll actually see that it moved out of reserve and it was used for the asphalt pad. So through the MREC capital funding, the portion that Maxville got offset the remaining amount and plus the $20,000. So there are no more funds under the Maxville lighting reserve at this time.
Okay, very good. So we will address Councillor Martin's request in the recreation
yeah,
master
but my
plan.
main purpose was to just I want to get a feeling for, this is an and you know, like Maxville's got the largest population in the GSL, as far as players in the GSL. And they're the only place in the GSL, every little tiny hamlet has a lit soccer field and whatnot. So a brand new soccer field would have LED lighting, which would be a lot cheaper to run, rather than having a Maxville run to a home game in another field that's still running with the heavier, more expensive lights and everything else. I just like to get this, Maxville Recreation has about $40,000 that we're stating on. And we're going to continue to sit on it until we get this project going. And my main request was if we can get it through grants, like I just saw the skateboard park extension, $275,000 grant there. And before we still go getting a grant for an outdoor rink, which I think by now, if they wanted an outdoor rink, they should be trying to make one right now. Last time I drove by the arena in Alexandria, there was no clearing of land or any kind of indication that anybody really wanted an outdoor rink there. Like if it was me and in Maxville, like I did in the past, we just went and we flooded an area just to see if it's going to work out and if we can maintain it. I just wanted to get that project in before we go spending money on
Okay.
an outdoor rink or something
Yeah,
like that.
well-
It's just not going to be sustainable.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Martin. We'll address it. It'll be on the top of the list when we discuss the master plan. I will now pass the chair over back to the mayor, and we are just starting the community services budget. Mr. Mayor, on page 35.
35?
Yeah.
Okay, so community services budget, so just starting up on the, under community development, we have the revenues. Are there any question on the revenue portion of it? Just 3 lines there. And then expenses down below. Questions or comments? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Massey.
Okay, so I think everybody's now where I was at 10 minutes ago. Okay, so under line 2031, and can we not just increase that, that amount of 15.5 to 20,000? It would kind of, I think Zoe would agree that it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb if we go over budget by nearly double. Like, would that be fair assessment to say that we don't expect this thing to stick around 15,000?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think we should leave the budget as is. I've applied for funding to help support some of the activities like My Main Street. So there may be overage in that category, but there may be an underspending that happens under special events. And I think that that would offset. So I would suggest for this year, given the budget compressions we have, to leave it that way. And if we see next year that we're not able to maintain it, we can address it in 2025's budget.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. Go ahead, Councillor Manley.
And just, that's what I asked Anne for a listing, a better breakdown of exactly what that is and what that is. If it's, you know, 10,000 for fireworks and whatever else, and how much for candy and all that kind of stuff. So just so we have a better understanding, and then we can decide if we want to cut back or whatever on that or whatever, so.
Can I just, on July 1st and Christmas expenses, is that where the Maxville tree lighting is included in that?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to your question, the Maxville tree lighting, the only costs that I incur are for candy and sundries for council, so, or the cost of a driver for a float. So no, the rest is incurred under Public Works.
Okay, just, we definitely need to look at something in regards to the tree. We're spending big dollars bringing in a tree that we cut down and use for, so we need to look at a long-term solution there. So I just, something maybe just in the next, you know, not in November. Let's look at something this, you know, in the spring and summer, and come back with something that we can, that's viable. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, and I agree, because I think it's a lot of money, not to mention cutting down a perfectly healthy tree, but there is an evergreen that was planted, how many years ago, Anne?
About 4 years ago.
About 4 years ago, so I don't know how tall it is now, but it's about, so it's, okay, it's taking its time.
It's shrinking every year.
Eventually, well, it's because it's planted in rubble, but eventually that tree will be the tree that will get decorated when it gets big enough.
Okay. Any further questions or comments on this budget? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to other contributions. So we have revenues of proposed budget of 35,000, and then you see the expenses below. So it looks like it's gone up about a little over $2,000. I also just want to make note while we're doing this, just in regards to our North Glengarry Recreation Associations. They've done very well for us over the term, well, my whole term of being on council, and very rarely do they change their budget. They operate within pretty much the same budget year after year, and they do very well and take a lot of pressure off of our staff to have to look after recreation in every community. So I just want to say, give them kudos for that. Any questions or comments on this page? Thumbs up from everybody to move on. Okay. Recreation building water legislation. So we basically put this in every year. We don't really spend it, the whole amount, but you never know what's gonna happen. Go ahead.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, there are some repairs that are being planned for the buildings. So we have some issues with some of the UV systems in the buildings that
Okay.
are quite old and nearing the end of their life cycle. So there is some work being planned under that budget.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Massey.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Okay, I'm on the next library list.
Having this problem with them.
Yeah, I thought it was just you, but apparently it's the two of us. So.
I'll come back in 5 minutes and then we'll be.
Okay, on to libraries.
There we go.
We have our revenues and our expenses and capital as well. Discussion, Councillor Massey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the library rent, can we not assume that that rent is gonna be pretty much as it was last year and the year before? Like, can we not, if we up our revenue projection by 3,200 or 5,000, that would relieve another 5,000 at the bottom?
No, that's our revenues.
I know, but yeah, but if we get more revenues, that means that we have less expenses in a way.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, so we're actually renegotiating the leases with the counties for the libraries, and we're not quite sure how that's going to go. So at this point, I would really not want to increase that amount, because I'd be very disappointed if they decided to readjust the lease in any manner that might negatively impact the budget.
That's fair, okay.
Further questions or comments? Okay. Moving on to capital. In capital, at we have the Delkey Plus building. It's brick replacement, parging, and repairs for $25,000. Go ahead, Councillor Manley.
Yeah, I don't think the timing's right on this, with $20,000 coming out of the tax base for this or whatever. Maybe, Ann, could you give us a little update to exactly what the issue is there?
So there's actually water infiltration in the building. So if we don't do this work, it's going to end up costing more in the long run. So we're hopeful to keep it under that budget or even less. There are some community members that might be able to do some of the work. We just want to make sure that the people are qualified to do the work. But I think that in the long term, this is the best solution for that building. And we have not really spent any money on that building during the time that I've been here. So over a period of 7 years, this would be the first amount of money that we're spending on the property.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I agree, but I'm just, the timing on this is not right, where we're looking at a 5% increase or whatever in taxes or whatever. I don't see it as a, I don't know. I'm concerned about that building or whatever. It basically is a community building.
We own it.
We own it. I know that's the issue. Should we not sell it?
Well, I mean, it's,
So
if you want to have that, if you want to fight that fight now, it just remember it's going to be a significant fight. For the amount of money that we're spending on that building, at $25,000 over all the years that it's been there, I think it's a small amount to have it. You know, they do use it as a community building. They have lots of events there. So that's just my opinion. Ann, you had.
So I was going to mention, through you, Mr. Mayor, I do have some good news when it comes to some spending that might alleviate this a little bit. So as we go through the
Okay.
budget.
Go ahead, Councillor Cadell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, as you mentioned, it's been there for years, and it's costing about 6,000 to, you know, cover whatever
Yep.
we are responsible for. So 25,000 isn't terribly significant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments on this? Go ahead, Councillor Massey.
I got 2 points, but on the building itself, did you get somebody to look at the problem, like a real contractor certified? Okay. It's just that we don't want to get work done on a building that the problem is going to come back 6 months later. You know what I mean? Like, we got to do the right thing here. And since we're in Dalkeith, a few years ago, 2 years ago, I was at the November 11th celebration in Dalkeith, and I know it's not our at the cenotaph there. The steps that are leading to the cenotaph are cement, and they're crooked and broken and everything. Like, there's about 5 steps.
It's not our property, though.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's just that I felt ashamed because the older folks.
I
would
feel
have-
there'll be some news coming forward in the next little bit on many things that are happening in Dalkeith through Benefactor.
Okay, so, yeah, but, okay.
Yeah.
So don't own the cenotaph, nothing at all in there?
No.
Okay, so I just wanted to bring the concern.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, it's really great because the Dalkeith Plus and the Dalkeith Recreation Association have been working on a wonderful project for the community together. So we've seen over time that these groups are really working collaboratively. So we're hoping to bring more information to council in the future on that.
Okay, so Councillor Manley had asked about the $25,000. Is who's in agreement with leaving it in there at 25,000? Okay, so no further questions there. Excuse me. The Municipal Recreation Association's budget, they have not obviously submitted their budgets for the year. I know that we have 35,000 for the outdoor rink.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, there's a little bit of money also that was kept over, and that's going to be reflected in a future budget from Dunvegan for some roofing that wasn't able to be done. But the good news is we have our meeting on February 1st, hopefully right after council passes this budget, and I'll be able to give them the good news that the budget was approved, and we usually sit down and we have a very collaborative exercise determining the projects, and we've already set amounts. They've given me the projects they're looking at and amounts, but at this time, those were done in the fall. We just want to make sure that the prices are also in line with what they're proposing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Okay, moving on to economic development. I'm on page 43. We have the revenues totaling $19,000, and we have expenses. Questions on expenses? Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Online, on the expense side, 1015, the...
Part-time wages?
Yes, slightly over budget, but is that something that need to be, next year in the planning, it will be, like I know we're proposing 4,000 again, so is that something that it's going to move to another line item, or is that, because we can't realistically expect that to go down 20,000, or?
And?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, there seems to be an adjustment there for the part-time wages because we only had basically oh, yes. So we extended Daryl's contract last year until April. So
right.
we came back to council with that. So that's why there's a discrepancy there. So thank you, CAO, for reminding me of that. But this year for 2024, we will be in line. We've applied for a grant for the summer student. And it's really important also that we have that summer student this year, because as we know, there's been changes to the Heritage Act, and that's going to affect some of the work that we're doing through the Arts, Culture, and Heritage Committee, which is on our municipal heritage register. So that student will not only help us support the My Main Street events, they will also help us with that activity. But it's offset through the revenues.
Okay,
And,
yes, go ahead.
and on, I was just looking and I was happy to see that, to address some of Councillor Manley's, not that he is very involved, but 3702, that we put our CIP program levels to 30,000 instead of 60,000, which saves the community 30,000. I'm happy to see that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I may. So we adjusted the CIP amount to $30,000 this year. So Natalie and I did an exercise. We looked to see how much money we had been spending over the last few years. And what we've noted is now with the regional incentives program, that has taken some of the projects in a different direction in the community. And the CIP has also been in place for 8 years now. It's crazy to think that it's been that long. So we're seeing less projects coming through that stream and more projects coming through the regional incentive program. And that's why we've adjusted this. If we see that this amount of money is not sufficient, we'll come back to council, and again, we'll adjust that in the 2025 budget.
Okay, questions on that? No? Okay. Any further questions on, then we have capital economic development, $15,000.
So the good news on this would be a revamp of our website. And our website supplier is really keen on moving us to another platform. So most of the municipalities that they had been working with have moved to a more efficient type of a platform. So they have offered us a special pricing to be able to do this. This includes migrating all of our existing pages to the new format. So it would be a scroll down format instead of a click format. So we are looking forward to working on that project and bringing forward a new website in 2024.
Okay. Questions or comments on anything on this page? Okay. Moving on to economic development capital budget. Although we already just did website upgrade. Sorry, my apologies. Moving on to Maxville Sports Complex, revenues and expenses. Questions or comments?
We do have a good news story on this. You will see that the Maxville Arena has had quite an increase in ice rentals, and that's really good news for the community there, and we expect this trend to continue.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Nassif.
Are some of the numbers are in the revenues missing? Is that because they're not there yet? Is that normal? Okay. It's just that I'm looking at vending machine revenues, 6,000, and there's no revenues at all. And if I flip it to the other side, then there was some expenses there. So just so we, you know, the 6,000 we
So-
budgeted for.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, again, we have two lines for vending machine revenues, and you'll see that they're offset, so we're going to correct that. And Melissa and I, on the 2nd of January, went through and we emptied all of our, we did the accounting for all of the vending machines through our facilities, and those aren't reflected in the December 18th.
Okay.
So the numbers are quite a bit higher.
Thank you.
Okay, and capital. We are spending,
So this year, I will call it the Maxville year. So this is the facility that's going to see the most of the spending occurring. We have a compressor refurbishment. You see these regularly. We're also proposing to do the engineering plans for the replacement of the cement surface. And the reason we're looking at doing this is that we expect to have some grants come in the future for infrastructure. And we know from experience with the Glengarry Sports Palace, the fact that we had our engineering designs done ahead of time, we were at the top of the list when it came to receiving funding. So that gives us time to work on the plans. We're not in a rush. And when the funding is available, we are in a position to apply and be shovel-ready for a build. We are also proposing to paint the exterior of the building, and I think that's going to be really nice to see a refreshed look on that building. And we've planned on painting the parking lot lines. The reason the money is there is that we usually work collaboratively with Public Works on a project like this, but we have no guarantee, because that work is done through an SDG contractor. We have no guarantee on the timing of when the lines could be done. Our goal is to have this done in time for the Maxville Fair and for the Glengarry Highland Games. Since we don't have control on when a contractor would come in, we want to make sure that we have that funding there. If there's a way for us not to spend it, please rest assured that we're not going to do that. So,
Go ahead.
we also have.
Just a
Oh, sorry.
question.
A couple of questions. With regards to the line painting, and I saw in the Public Works budget that there's some dollars there for hardtop for parking lots. Are you thinking about, because I know that the parking lot at Island Park is terrible, and the parking lot at Maxwell Sports Complex is terrible. Is some of that going there?
So we actually had a conversation, the CAO, Tim and myself, just recently about municipal parking lots, and we chose Maxville's parking lot to be redone. So that money would be spent there.
Yeah, it's bad. Well,
Yes.
and so, just one second. Just like, you'd be putting lines on rubble.
So we would still have some lines that would fall on the granulars in the back. Yes, we would, but at least the surface would be redone in Maxville prior to, hopefully, when we put the lines down.
Okay, so you'd wait for the lines then. Thank you.
Go ahead, Tim.
Thank you. My apologies, it's a little bit out of order, but it's relevant. So as part of that line item is there because we've broken it out of the roads need study. As this year we went and did the community center in Glen Robinson, and that went really well. We're able to give it more accessibility and that sort of thing. So I'd put that out, but hadn't actually planned which parking lots to do. I want to point out that we do really well as North Glengarry with the counties because we go and do our budget so early and we go and get this approved. That lets us have all our stuff in order, and then, but we are at the mercy of that joint tendering. So if we can, this is an excellent exercise, gives us approval early on, then we're the township who really has our stuff in order, and they come to us first. And generally all of our paving is done before or around Canada Day. So I just want to add that comment, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Just one other, if you don't mind, if I can remember what it is. So with regards to the ice rentals, it's a bit of it's 100% sort of flop in the other direction in terms of the usage that we were experiencing sort of pre-COVID, COVID, now post-COVID. And I don't really know what the reasons are for it, but it's not certainly the direction we were anticipating things going. And so it's wonderful news to have our arenas full and our ice being used. But whatever the trend is that shifted, like how can we be confident that that's going to maintain? We can't?
No, we have good working relationships with outside organizations, but go ahead, Anne.
Absolutely. So we've seen some return of some associations that tried to go elsewhere, and they've come back to us because, first of all, they like Maxville. They like the ice quality there, so they've come back. We also know that in the very short term, St. Isidore is closing down, so we're going to get overflow from them also. And there are several other arenas that have the same thing, so we will be guaranteed that overflow. But not only that, we're seeing numbers increasing, both in registration for the NGS, the Glengarry girls, as well as the Alexandra Minor Hockey. So it's not only in Maxville that this is happening, it's happening also here in Alexandria.
Yeah, no, I know it's.
We don't have enough ice to go around right now.
Okay, well, it's a good problem to have. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
So the last two items we had are the ball fence repair and the Maxville street sign. So that's the fair sign. We're working collaboratively with KAS, with the Glengarry Sports Hall of Fame, and the Lions on the replacement of that sign. We had initiated that back in 2017, but due to circumstances with the Highland Games, we had to put that project on hold. So we're looking at between $40,000 to $45,000 for the cost of the sign, but we're working with KAS right now to apply for some funding. There's some signage funding that's come through RTO 9. That's $15,000. So if we were successful, that would decrease the amount of money, perhaps. I'm expecting some additional costs. There always are when we do projects like this. We might have, electrical costs or, some minor costs. But just to let you know that that is a collaborative project.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's good that sign's being replaced. It's old and it's pretty awful. Is this going to be a digital sign?
So, thank you. The plan is to have a liquid crystal display sign in the middle of it with a static sign around it that would advertise the facilities, the 4 facilities.
So it will be digital?
It will be digital, and we would be able to change things on our phone.
Okay. Maybe, I think we're going to have more conversations with regards to this around the council table. At the counties, we've had some problems with digital signs, and they need to be very carefully chosen and very carefully controlled. Otherwise, they're a hazard. And I know we don't have anything in our sign bylaw that governs them. So if we could please make sure that this comes in front of council before any decisions are made, I think that's important.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to reassure you, we're working with companies that are Canadian and that are used to Canadian winters. So most of the time these signs break because of the cold weather in the winter time, and that's when you have problems with them in the future.
Yeah. They can also be a distraction, so we need to be careful.
I think it's a little bit different from what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, I
That
don't
one
know.
was massive and
Yeah.
bright.
Well, there was
and,
one in South Dundas that
Yeah.
created significant
Problems, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just going back to the engineering plans for the Maxville Sports Complex, wondering again if that should be part of the recreation master plan that we're looking at. I mean, like you said, Karma, there's no guarantee that the future is going to look like it did this year, and I know we need to look ahead, but I think we need to also make sure that we look at the big picture as well. So just hoping that maybe that's can be part of the plan too when we're looking at that.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it's no secret that every year that we start up the facility, I hang out my rosary, and hope that everything works well. So that facility is really at the end of its life cycle. It's surpassed its life cycle. So we are basically fixing tubes that carry refrigerant by hand and patching cement. And I think council saw that when we visited the facility. It makes so much more sense, and I think that's the way that most of us work things, even with our home expenses. If we budget for a roof replacement and we do all the work that we have to do ahead of time, we're ready when the time comes. So this does give us a time. We're expecting elections soon. That's usually when these grants come out. So I think it would be prudent for us to be able to do this work. And we know that engineering designs aren't done in 2 months. They take a minimum of 6 to 12 months to get done. So by the time we go out, and either we work through a qualified engineering firm or we do an RFP, it takes time to do that type of a process.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're looking at the big picture, that's all, so. yeah.
Okay, we'll keep on moving. We'll go to Island Park. Revenues of 78.1 budgeted, and expenses. Councillor Massey.
I see on the grants line, Ann.
Just what number is it?
Oh, sorry,
please?
7503.
Yep.
Like we didn't get all the grants that we were thinking, or?
So yes, we did. The money came in very close to the end of the year.
Okay,
Yes. The skate park.
okay, yep, sorry.
Any questions on expenses? Go ahead, Councillor Manley.
Just looking at line 1015,
Yep.
the part-time wages. Year-to-date's 37,000 as of the 28th, or the 18th of December. We're substantially over budget on that, and we look like we've budgeted for 55 for next year. What's the situation there, Ann?
So we've had a lot of usage of that facility, a lot more, especially since COVID. And when we don't have our full-time staff, we rely on part-time staff to open and close the facility. So it's usually a minimum of a 3 or 4 hour shift in the morning, 3 or 4 hour shift in the afternoon. So that's why we've had mostly those costs incur there.
Okay.
Just, it also looks like we're over though in full-time wages as well.
Yes, so I did not calculate those wages last year. That was done by the former treasurer. Those numbers came directly from her. I know that in regular wages, those would be the regular wages. We didn't increase the staff over there. But the overtime is due directly to events happening outside of regular working hours. And we do offset staff, but sometimes if there's an event that happens in the park, I'll say like July 1st, we have 3 members of staff that are there. Those are statutory holiday plus the wages for that day, which are a time and a half. So most of the overtime that we do incur are due to activities like Family Day, July 1st, the parades, so on and so forth.
Go ahead, Councillor Massey.
I think for special events like Family Day and July 1st and Christmas parade or something, whatever wages or allotted pay that we pay the extra employees for those extra days, I think to make it look a little bit better, it should be put in the other line, the other community event thing. You know, if we have to hire 5 people for Canada Day first, it's not fair that we put it in Island Park, which makes it worse. It should be put in that Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be transferred there, sure.
Yeah,
We
and
can
then-
absolutely do that.
So when you come back to council with the description of what that $28,000 was, maybe if then we'd have to readjust that one, because it's not fair. And then like the whole 5-6 lines here, that starting budget is weird a little bit. Insurance went up to 39 from 14. That's incredible. That's triple.
Yeah, so the overall global insurance didn't go up by that amount, so there was a reallocation by the previous treasurer of the insurance.
Okay.
So the insurance you'll see throughout the budget, some goes down, so I think in Matthew's department it goes down.
Okay.
However, globally it didn't go down, so she just did a reallocation of the insurance. Overall, it went up by 10%. Island Park itself did not go up that much. She just did a reallocation for budget.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not correct.
No.
Okay, so that's, because that's a huge increase.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Further questions? Okay. Island Park Capital. Proposed splash pad repairs, dock replacement, and cenotaph backfill and cleanup.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I just, the dock, it's not a full replacement, it's a section of the dock that we're replacing, so I don't want anybody to think that we're replacing all, 80 feet of dock. So it's a section that'll be replaced. And the cenotaph, the backfill and the cleanup, I think that people have noticed ever since a new construction project is happening on McDougall, the back of the cenotaph looks pretty scruffy, and the side where the stone wall is, we plan on going in there and cleaning that out, so you'll see a flat surface there.
And are we proposing any dollars for the islands?
So that will be done by staff. They're going to be going in, and I've already had the discussion about planned work. They are hopeful to go on even with the ice to the Small Fireman's Island. If it freezes hard enough, they'll be able to walk over. If not, when we put the harvester in, Public Works will bring the crew out to the other islands to do some cleanup. So it's all part of the plan.
I'd like to see a lot more than just cleanup. There's trees that need to come
Yes,
down.
exactly.
A whole bunch, there's lots of work to do, so I just want to see something, I'd like to see a plan for that. Anybody else have any questions on any of these? Okay. Moving on to the dome. On anything on revenues and expenses? Yep, go ahead.
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor. It's just that it's nice to see, just like what happened in Maxfield and Alexandria, it's nice to see that our facilities, people appreciate it, and it shows by the numbers of revenues also in there, I believe. Yeah, it's nice to see that people are using it, and I know there's always people at the Dome, so now there's always people everywhere, so that's nice to see that they appreciate to have these facilities too, so just a comment.
What's the difference, and we're talking about the actuals in revenues, and we're at 137, and then we're only proposing 107.
So 2023 was a bit of an odd year. We were coming out of COVID. We weren't quite sure what the numbers would look like. So we were very conservative. We went to 137 a lot due to the field revenues. So that's GSL taking extra hours. As you know, we had a very wet spring, so they extended their hours. I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like this year. So we were a little bit more conservative in our revenue. We'll be happy to come back to council and say that we have a similar revenue as this year in 2024, and we can adjust in 2025.
We've increased it by 20.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I see that you've increased it from, but I'm just looking at, if you're looking at the actuals, which will be better than they're showing right now to December 18th, and then looking at the total expenses, which will go up, but if you just look at the numbers, it means that we're down about 100. It cost us 118, and now we're proposing for $194,000 loss, as opposed to just over $100,000 loss. So it's a big gap compared to what we had last year.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, that's due to capital expenditures. We had no capital expenditures last year. So, but I have some good news on that front.
Okay. So looking at the dome, yes, you have some good news on the tennis court asphalt.
So on Tuesday, we had a contractor come in with a small roller and roll out some of the cracks and the bumps that council saw when we did the facilities tour. So we were a little bit concerned about cutting open the surface to investigate underneath because we didn't know what would happen, and we were concerned that we would have to come back to council and say that the $50,000 we had in the initial budget wouldn't be sufficient. Trying it out with the roller, we figured we had nothing to lose. The good news is the work that was done was incredible. I would say that it is 100 times better than it was. We have a little bit of patching to do with some cement epoxy, and we might be spot painting at a couple of places. But since Tuesday, I've heard back from multiple groups telling me that they're really pleased with the surface. So we want to reduce the $50,000 by $45,000 and just leave $5,000 to pay for the work that was done on Tuesday and the spot painting and the epoxy that we have to do. So that would be removing a combination of reserves and tax base at that level.
Go ahead.
Well, that's good news. Just with, because, so then that tennis court will then be up to snuff.
Well, I won't tell you that it is perfect, because there's still one little bump that's about a quarter of an inch, but it's not a trip hazard. It's much more gradual now. So I have no concerns about letting people play with it.
Okay,
So
that's good
play on
news.
I should say on the court. We're hopeful that it'll last at least a couple of years, and it gives us time to do a planned replacement if we wish to move forward with that. So we'll continue to monitor it, we'll take pictures, and let council know how things go.
And that's good news. Is that field used quite well?
Absolutely.
Very well used, okay.
Absolutely.
Because of pickleball.
Oh, okay.
Pickleball,
Full.
tennis,
Full.
lawn bowling.
And, forgive me, Mr. Mayor, but I'm going back to the capital for Island Park and looking at next year, the new tennis installations. I realize this is next year, but that's one of the problems with the 10-year plan, is that your eye gets drawn to things that are coming in the future. So I see that there is going to be a proposed $300,000 investment into the tennis courts at Island Park. So, but it just reminds me, now that the tennis courts are up to snuff in the Dome, like, is that a wise investment? Are we going to be discussing this in the?
We're not open at night in the summertime. Those tennis courts are used all the time.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, they're full all the time.
at night?
Yep.
Okay, all right, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
and we haven't spent a lot of money on it, and it's been so due. It's.
Yeah, no,
they're terrible,
I
but
believe
yeah,
that
it's not.
it's
There's only
due.
one court at
It's just-
the Dome. There's 2 courts at the park.
Okay,
So,
okay.
and they're
I was just asking
very
the question.
Yep.
Thank
And-
you.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, there are pickleball lines also at those
Yes.
tennis courts. And if council recalls, I'm going to say 6 years ago, we did a patch job because there are very big cracks. And that patch job has held somewhat, but with the freeze-thaw cycles that we're having, there are 4 levels of asphalt on that court. So there's a crack 4 levels of asphalt deep. So we did the best we could, it held on. When we do the replacement, it's going to be a full replacement, the whole court, the gravel underneath, as well as the fencing. But we don't know if that's going to be next year or.
Sorry to derail the conversation.
Jesus, well, at least you went backwards, and like he's going forward, so maybe we can meet in the middle. Yes.
And just the repair work that was done on Tuesday, is it, being that it was successful and presumably did minimal damage, is it something that maybe in 2 years or 3 years we try again if it keeps rising, which we have to presume it will?
Absolutely. I think that looking at creative solutions like that would be our first option, but I think we have to be conscious that at one point it may not work.
Yep, fair enough. Okay, thanks.
Go ahead, Councilor Manley.
So, and you mentioned then that that would free up $45,000, is that correct? And it's going to be split between the reserves and tax base. Do we know what that looks like?
So I would leave that to the CAO and to the treasurer to figure out.
So any of those projects were not, it's sort of an arbitrary split. So it would be up to council whether they would want to reduce the amount from reserve or take it from the tax base. My recommendation would be a reduction to the tax base of the 45,000, being that
34,000, which is what's there.
you said,
Yeah.
No, but
yeah, so
we're-
the 34,000,
Yeah.
yeah. So the difference would be 9,000 from the reserve.
From the reserves. Okay,
Or
I'm in favor
11,000.
of
So we
that,
can
Yeah.
take 34,000
34,
off.
okay.
which is 0.5%. That's good.
Has anything changed while I was gone? We had the 5,000 and the 34,000, no other,
We
nothing
took out
else?
the mayor's budget.
The mayor's budget? So I'll take, so add 20,000? Okay, is that me? All right. Moving on to Glengarry Sports Palace. budgeting for 351,000 in revenues. And then we have our expenses at 563. Go ahead, Councillor Madden.
Quick question. The agreement with South Glengarry, how much longer does that go on?
It was a 12.5-year agreement, and I think that we're in our 4th year of it.
Oh, wow. Okay, good stuff.
It's almost like.
Further questions or comments? Anybody? Moving on to capital budget 2024, $7,000 in LED lights, floor scrubber, and protective net near time clock. Jock?
Floor scrubber, did we not have one new 5 years ago?
No, so actually that was prior to my arrival, and right now what we're doing is we're sharing the one between Maxville whenever we have big events at the GSP, because the one at the GSP died, and after having the technician come out, they said it really wasn't worth repairing it again. So we bought one in Maxville. That
Okay.
might be the one that you're thinking of.
No,
5
I'm thinking
years
about the
ago.
one in Alexandria, I remember.
No, that was prior to my
That-
time.
Yeah, and it kept getting cut. I think you're remembering the one we were going to buy
Yeah.
for the Island
Island
Park.
Island
And it
Park.
kept getting cut.
We cut that one out
We
of
keep,
Island Park.
it kept getting cut for
Okay,
Island Park.
okay, could be, because I remember.
She just stopped putting it in.
Guys,
Okay,
it's like Jacob's boots.
It's like his what?
Jacob's boots.
I would have said yes if I were here. You know what, take it out of the mayor's budget. Okay, I'm kidding.
I wrote it down already.
Yeah, you wrote it. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Which LED lights are we talking about on this one, Ann?
So we have a couple left on the soccer field, and we have the ones over the baseball field.
Okay, thanks.
And then no more LED light, no more light changing.
Go ahead, Councillor Manley.
Yeah, I'm wondering about the protective net or near the time clock. What does that entail?
So if council recalls, when we did the GSP, we had planned to change all of the netting around the facility, but due to the cost constraints, we weren't able to do that. The most damaged net section is where the time clock is, and it's because it gets lifted and drawn down every time the ice resurfacer comes out, and it has holes in it. So we put it back after the construction, but we knew it was going to be something that we'd have to address. The time clock, if I was to replace that, that's about $50,000. So it's definitely worth the investment of putting the new netting in front of it.
Okay.
Good. Further questions or comments on this? Seeing none, you're done.
Oh.
Moving on, now where the cuts really happen. Fire Services Department. Welcome, Matthew. Oh,
Excuse
yes?
me. Before we get started with the fire services, I'd like to congratulate them on a great save last week. We got some good news from, Sarah sent out an email about a great save that was made. A little girl was saved, and just I'd like to commend the fire department on that.
Thank you. Yep, good job.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, the fire service in 2023, we did have a very busy year where we continued to strive to meet all the requirements set out by the Ontario Fire Marshal as well as the regulations and standards. So in terms of suppression, we did, our call volume continues to remain consistent, and we've had quite a bit of challenging incidents throughout 2023, which sometimes puts a little bit of a burden onto our operating budget. So overall, in terms of training, we're really seeing, as council's aware, there was a new regulation that was put out by the Ontario government in terms of firefighter certification, which put a huge burden on many fire services across Ontario. However, North Glengarry was in a very good position, and I'm pleased to say that the certifications that's going to be required by 2026, we're in a position to actually have all our firefighters certified by the end of 2024. So that's a very good achievement. That has a lot of things to do with our training facility and where we positioned ourselves in order to meet all the regulations forthcoming. So in terms of, again, our training, we ended up hiring over 22 and 23. We've seen an increase of our personnel. So there's a lot of discussions as many Ontario municipalities are seeing a decrease in volunteers. We're not seeing this throughout North Glengarry, so we've had 60 new recruits through that period of time, and in 2024 we're looking at another increase of potentially 10 to 12 new firefighters. So through 2024 we're going to have another recruitment, again utilizing the training facility throughout that period. As council is aware, we also, in 2023, we opened up our training facility to outside municipalities and agencies. So it was towards the end of 23 that we did this, so we did see an increase, not an increase, but we've had some rentals. In 2024, we're going to be definitely putting a push to open this up again to other municipalities. Some of the challenge that other municipalities face is that they're not in a position to be able to come out and certify and utilize their facility. So they're working to achieve that, and they do know that there's a true cost benefit of utilizing our facility versus going to other regional training centers across Ontario. So I'm hopeful that over the next couple of years we're going to see an increase in that training facility.
Just stop you right there. Just go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, just on the training facility, and we did talk about that at the municipal a few months ago. Like that's on a leased land, eh? And we did put like council did, not that it's going to affect any effect on today's budget. It's just that we have to look forward to trying to purchase that land, because that facility, which we invested a lot of money, sitting on leased land or rented land. So if ever that owner that's there decides to sell that land, we're kind of, it's something that we shouldn't start looking into. You know what I mean? Like, because we have a very, very modern, beautiful facility that's sitting on not our land. So it's just something that I just wanted to bring it to council on the radar, so we try to figure out something what to do just while you were talking about that. Thanks, man.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of training, we're hopefully going to see, again, like I said, an increase at our training facility to have some revenue being generated from that aspect. So we continue in terms of fire prevention inspections. Our fire prevention division is doing some great work with various different inspections. We're going to be out in the community, and I'm pleased to report that they're meeting all the provincial requirements in terms of all the inspections required through vulnerable occupancies and so forth. One of the challenges that we're going to be facing this year that was brought forward to council was we're going to be completing the community risk assessment that's going to be developed, which is going to be coming in front of council prior to July of 2024. In terms of capital, in 2023, council did approve a new pumper to replace our aging pumper in Alexandria, which went through 20 years of service. So we're going to be pleased to report that we're going to be receiving the new pumper in February, in the second week of February. So and then we'll have hopefully a potential revenue of selling the old pumper. So overall, I would say in terms of our department, we're seeing great strides in what we're providing our township in terms of suppression and our overall inspection processes that go on, and to meet all the needs of the Ontario Fire Marshal's office. In terms of some other capital projects that we're going to be seeing is we do follow the Ministry of Labor's requirements in terms of cancer prevention checklists. So what you'll see in the capital budget, we have that we're requesting $30,000 in terms of that there is divided in terms of what we're going to be looking at. That's just divided all through our 3 stations in Alexandria, Maxville, and Apple Hill. So we're going to just looking at maintaining the health and safety requirements throughout all our stations and keeping our stations operational.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Any questions before we go into the budget numbers? Okay, seeing none. We have fire department revenues, and we have their expenses. Questions or comments? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the revenues, the facility rentals, line item 7710, you said that it had been rented out a few times in 2023, but I don't see any actual revenues there.
It's not a complete year, though.
Right, so they came in after?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we're going to be, I actually have that line item circled for myself as well, just to go over with Madam Treasurer to see where those revenues were placed.
Oh, where they were placed?
that's right.
Okay, so there would have been some then?
Yeah, just a couple, yeah.
Okay, and the 2,500 that you've put in for the proposed revenue for the facility rental, is that sufficient?
We didn't want to be, I guess, overzealous in terms of where we're going to be seeing, based on having it being the first year. Really, 2024 is going to be our true full year that we're going to see where our revenues lie, and especially with the certification with other municipalities. We never know. We've had a lot of discussions already to know other municipalities do want to come in, so we're already seeing probably about 3 municipalities that want to come in and utilize the facility in 2024, which is a good thing. So, but how much and how much usage, we just don't know at this time. So we didn't want to. We based it almost on what the revenue was of last year was about 2,500. So, and that was about 3 months worth. So.
Okay, thank you. Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cadell.
Mayor, just the revenues from residents are all over the place there. Fees from residents, I should say, that's 7230.
It's through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, these revenues, this is revenues that it's cost recovery based on after incidents, whether we have a fire watch or should there be any invoices for further. So yes, there's a huge fluctuation. That is one of the line items that we kind of, it all depends on the incidents, what's required. If we go to an incident and we end up utilizing, let's say, additional services such as an excavator, that's fees that are going to be increased. So from year to year, that would be very, it'll fluctuate quite a bit.
Good? No, you're not...
Well, no, it's just that, it goes from actual revenue of 3,800 and proposed budget of 30,000. That's a
And then...
wishful thinking, or anything can happen. I can buy that.
No, and I agree. In terms of that, that's it. It's always through the past year since I've held the position of fire chief. It's always been at this. This hasn't been an overall increase, but I'll definitely take it back and have a review of that line item for you.
We'll see next year.
That's right.
Yeah, just maybe something to look at next year, Zoe, just if we're not actually collecting that, then let's look at it historically. So, thank you, Councillor. Any further questions or comments on anything that's in there? Just, Councillor Massey.
Yeah, on the expenses side, line 2270, there again we have the fire fees, 74 and budgeted for 30.
Yes.
So that's something is that amount not going to come from the township to cover those, or is that, what is that?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, fire fees, this is as part of our fire service agreement for the northeast portion of the township of Dalkeith 417.
Okay.
This is a automatic aid of Champlain Township. What you'll notice in 2023, the 74, that was a huge increase, but if you look back in 2022, it was only 7,000. That was as a result of Champlain Township didn't bill us in a timely manner in 2022. Therefore, you're seeing all the
A
funds
double
came
year.
out
Okay.
in 2023. So that's why the massive increase. But overall, you're seeing typically about 30,000 of, that's what we typically budget for. However, there is an offset in revenue from our MTO claims, so we're able to get some revenue back
Okay.
from some of those incidents that occur on the 417.
And if I go back to the revenues from other municipalities, that's what you're talking about? Like if we gonna charge, if we are to invoice another municipality for their help, like we did in Somerstown and in North Stormont or something?
That's correct. So from other municipalities, it would be only if we have an agreement, such as an automatic aid with North Stormont. In terms of with Champlain, it's with some of these, so we have automatic aid agreements with South Glengarry and North Stormont. So that's where we would be invoicing them in those cases.
Okay.
In other cases, it's where it becomes a mutual aid. That's falls under provincial mutual aid agreements where there is no cost recovery in those certain circumstances. But as per the, if you notice on line 7233, the MTO claims, those are stemming from the 417, which falls within the automatic aid that Champlain provides, North Glengarry. So we're able to actually get some of those claims back and offset some of the cost of the fees that they're charging us.
Okay, good. Thank you, man.
Okay. Further questions? And then under, we have $30,000 in capital for station renovations for 3 stations.
It's a quote carry forward from the street.
Yep. Okay, so let's do community emergency. I see our food was coming in, so we'll do CEMC. Any questions on that? So that's page 64, 65. No questions? Okay, so we will break for lunch and come back for everybody get all your questions ready for Tim. We'll have a little nap before and we'll be ready. So break time. Okay, thank you and welcome back, everyone. Oh, did I get out of? Sorry, I think I exit out of my. Okay, so we're into corporate fleet and machinery equipment. Welcome, Tim, and go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there's a few things to talk about when it comes to corporate fleet. We have been seeing a lot of supply chain issues, and some of that is, starting to catch up to us now. So we've got vehicles, we got 2 vehicles in 2022, 2 tandems, and then we had the similar thing. Our tandem in 2023 is rolled over to this year. The fire pumper came in, which is great. And the other thing that we've got going here that I'll go through in roads is we are actually making sure that we dispose of those assets as well and getting that money back. We're trying to implement a good replacement plan. So essentially for our, our general vehicles, so pickup trucks and sort of moving stuff around trucks, we're trying to look at a 10-year replacement. That way when we're disposing the asset, it's still worth something and we're getting, we're not having, lots of downtime with lots of maintenance. For the tandem plows, we're trying to, not an official policy, but really we're noticing that any tandem that's over 15 years old is causing us a huge amount of downtime and a huge amount of budget on vehicle maintenance. So that's really the overview. For the line by line, so we have we've got the pumper that's come in, and then we've got 2 tandems that were pre-approved in 2023. So one of those tandems is the one from last year, so we didn't get a tandem last year, and then the other one is the one for this year. So we are in with a joint tender with the county, and those should be delivered for the upcoming winter. Right, yeah, okay. And then we've got a 2011 half-ton truck for roads that needs to be replaced, and another half-ton truck for roads as well. That one's even older, a 2009. So we still, and we're disposing of assets as well. I believe we've still got 1 unit sitting out here for sale. The excavator is basically due for a major maintenance cycle. So we've put $15,000 in there to make sure we go and do the major maintenance. We're not replacing the excavator, just doing a large maintenance section on it. So that's most of it for fleet. I don't think I've missed anything. And, oh, sorry, I did go and pull it out of the road. So we do have, the 2 tandems that we sold was $21,000 in revenue. So you'll see that down in the roads budget. So then we move across to equipment. So for and I'll throw to Rec here to talk about it a little bit, but I'll go through the roads part. So our major thing, we're really looking for 2 pieces of equipment for roads for the upcoming year. And we saw this on our roads tour. So our cold patch trailer for Kenyon is done. We really I can't put that back in service. It's dangerous. So instead of replacing that with another cold patch trailer where you're using material that's way more expensive and your is honestly the trailer that they've been using, if we continue with that sort of design, we're really endangering our roads guys, is actually go with a proper hot mix trailer, so that we can actually go and get hot asphalt from the asphalt plant, and we should actually be able to make road repairs that actually stick around instead of pop out after a week. Everybody here was on the roads tour, and I'll go into the roads strategy in a little bit more depth later in the roads section. But really, this is a part of it, being able to take our guys off work that is essentially endless and pointless to actually make our repairs done well. And we'll see if we actually, so we've been using 2 cold patch trailers. We'll be able to see if we get this piece of equipment. I'm fairly confident we can get it early in the season and start using it this year. If it goes well, we might even be able to do 1 hot mix trailer for all of country instead of doing a small cold patch trailer at each one. They go out and patch stuff and then pops out, right? So do it once, do it well, and move on. We also have we find that we do need a tandem dump trailer. So what this is about is compaction, and crack routing. So I didn't talk about the accomplishments for 2023. I was going to talk about it a little bit more in roads, but our crack sealing trailer has done so well this year. I'm so happy with its performance. The one issue that we found is when we're actually routing out the cracks, the machine itself is very difficult to move with the equipment that we've got. So the idea of the tandem dump trailer is we'll use it for a lot of things, but one of the main purposes is so that we can get that crack router where it needs to be safely. It's just the way that it's weighted. We need a very low to the ground trailer with a back that comes down that we can actually get that in and then move it to where it needs to be. We'll also use it for all sorts of different things. We'll actually also be able to rest some of the tandems a little bit more. So some of the work that the tandems, for example, the counties, they don't use their tandems at all during the summer. They're just used during the winter. We use it a lot for earth moving and that sort of thing, where with a tandem dump trailer, we'll be able to do that with a 3/4 ton and our dump trailer. there is some, and I'll pass across to Anne for some of the equipment for rec.
So, good news, the ATV that we had planned to purchase this year, we're proposing to push it back to 2025 and further. So we actually had to do some repairs. We looked at purchasing a new one last year with the $20,000 we had in the budget, and the cost far surpassed the budget, so we decided to wait. We put repairs into the existing one, and it's working really well for us. So we don't see the need to change it this year. So that was directly subsidized through the tax base. So that's good news. That would reduce the amount by $27,000.
So we can take that 27 out?
Yeah, it would be moved to 2025 and beyond.
Okay.
And the other expenses that we do have for this year is the replacement of a lawnmower that's 15 years old. And it's a yard machine, so that was a residential unit. So it's at the Glengarry Sports Palace. We're going to be replacing that by a commercial unit. And the purchase of a trimmer. So that's it for recreation.
Okay, so let's start with, are there any questions on the fleet? So that was the fire pumper, the fire pumper, the tandem, and the tandem, they've all been ordered? Go ahead.
Just the 48,000 for a half-ton truck, is that a realistic number, or is that what they think?
Yeah, it comes with no radio.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we find that we don't, we need a pickup truck, but we are, like, you'll notice there's a 3/4 ton that you'll see you can actually see in there where we replace 3/4 tons. They cost a lot more. We're really going for, a whole half-ton Colorado instead of, a bigger truck. Thanks.
Any more on? Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, you mentioned that there's one snowplow that we were supposed to replace last year, 2023, we didn't. So basically that 380 that's on the same line, that's the same snowplow there.
That's right.
Okay, so those capital funds were put in 2023, so that 380 there doesn't actually affect anything?
It doesn't matter, it's all borrowed anyways.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything in the, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, we said there's the two that we ordered last year. Did we say that there was another one that's being replaced this year? Or am I missing something? I see there's a 380 carry forward on one of the 2008s.
Yep. Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, so there's a 2024, we wanted to replace a tandem, and 2023, we wanted to replace a tandem, and the report that we took last year was for those two tandems, so this year's and last year's.
Okay.
I'll also point out that there is just something that I'd sat down with the previous treasurer for to put a line item in, and for some reason she put it into the equipment instead of in the roads budget. That's, if you see at the bottom, building compliance upgrades, 20,000 for this year. That's we found that error, that it doesn't make a difference to the tax base because of the funding and everything. So it was, and that's for, we had some reports done for the Laheel Garage and the Kenyon Garage. We have some windows and some walls and that need to be painted and really to stay in compliance with our insurance requirements that we need to get done. And but in future budgets, you'll see that whole line item move to just the roads budget.
Anything in machinery and equipment? Yeah, go ahead, Councilor.
So, Tim, you're saying then that line for building compliance upgrades for $20,000, that shouldn't be there?
Yes, so the $20,000 is still an expenditure that we need to do this year.
Okay.
But it should be in the roads budget, not in the equipment budget.
So it shouldn't be in the capital?
It's still a capital expense,
okay.
just not fleet, it should be in
Oh.
roads, that's all.
Okay. And that's being funded by the tax base? Okay.
Further questions or comments on any of the fleet or machinery? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to Public Works Department.
Thank you very much. So, council came with us on the roads tour in 2023, and this is essentially that plan straight out. So, what we're really trying to do is our roads have really been deteriorating. We've been kind of living off their asset life, and so what we found is that if we go back and really rebuild these roads the way that they would be done, say, by the MTO, by the time we actually reach the end of rebuilding these roads, another, double that would have failed, right? So we've been working with the counties, and props to Dana, one of their road supervisor, who's been kind of came up with this idea, and they've tried it in a few places. So South Stormont has a few of these as well. And we have done it a little bit as well, is actually going and essentially, I'm going to call it bandaging roads. So we do essentially a slurry and then an overlay. So that's not with a low-class bituminous treatment. That's with a high-class bituminous. So it's proper asphalt cement that is compacted and has a strength to it, but we apply it in a very thin lift. So we have done that in a few places over the years in isolated areas. And so this year we would really be doing the largest amount of kilometers that we've done while I've been here. And it's essentially to go and really start building us a base that we can build on in future years. So something that we've asked, I won't go through the whole thing, but essentially what we're looking at is trying to get all of the roads to this quality asset that we can maintain with our own staff, with all the minor aspects. So we have the crack sealing machine. That is the number one thing that any municipality can do, in my opinion, to keep their roads in good shape. If we're using a higher class asphalt concrete, then that's something you can really crack seal and something that'll really last. And the aim is to really go and get the year-over-year cost to be very, very low. And so any of that extra budget could be used to upgrade other roads, where at the moment we're trying to play catch up, right? So instead of actually putting in a cost line item per road, as we normally do, to say, this road's going to cost this much, this road's going to be cost this much. What we've asked council to do is approve the priority list. So the priority this year would be completely from the low-class bituminous roads, and as we do them, they would move over to the high-class bituminous roads list. That's on page 75 of your Word document. And so for this year, we would be trying to get done the Kenyon Concession 8, which was the road this year that we got $450,000 worth of essentially free work done by working with the MTO and doing some deals with the contractor working there. But we need to go and cap that road to capitalize on it. We also want to do Sky Road. So Sky Road, that's actually a partnership with our neighbor to go, who we share that road with, to go and get it done. We also want to do a section of McCormick Road, specifically around that hill area, and then Marcoux, Dorney, and then hopefully a section of Concession 5 if we have budget left over. So that's really our goal. But how it tends to work when we're going for the joint tender is we either have extra money left over because of the huge amount of kilometers that we're talking about. If those measurements are slightly off, it can mean, $20 $20,000, $30,000 that we have extra, or $20,000, $30,000 less that we have, right? Until you actually, and it's our opinion and the contractor's opinion, and as we actually go and measure. So hence I'm asking for the priority list to be approved, and then that way it'll all be the one line item, which that's the way that we get billed anyway, because it's a joint tender. We get one bill from the counties for the work, and we'll go down the line and do them in order of priority.
Go ahead.
Is that the priority list there?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't able to read it, because it's the wrong
Sideways.
way. And so could you please go through the priority list with us again? Because
For
I
sure.
wasn't following, and we need to know.
So
Can that be turned? Oh. So what do
Fantastic.
these numbers here mean?
So those are our road sections. So essentially, when we did, so this is all from the roads needs study, but our analysis of what actually needs to happen, judging by our assets. So those road sections are correspond to the inspected sections. So what the quality of the road is, what the priority of, and priority here represents the traffic count and how the road is used. So you can see concession 8 from County Road 20 to after the S-bend is the first road. It's 1.7 kilometers. It's not a boundary road. It's low-class bituminous. It's, the type is LCB. The platform width is 8 meters. The surface width is 7, and we're going to correct that to 6.5. And then that's the cost for our estimated cost for the rehabilitation. A normal rehabilitation would be $389,000, and under this program, 190. So if you see the two figures at the end there, so 389, that's what it would cost if we were to rebuild it like the MTO would rebuild it, right? This building the foundation, it'll only cost $190,000 to do that length, or that's what I estimate. And but we will have to go back and do another layer, right?
I think, Tim, just rather than get into that far
sorry.
of detail, I think let's talk about the roads that we're doing.
Yep.
And basically just quickly what we're,
Yep.
kind of what you're doing, because I mean, we'll be here all day if.
Yes. So concession 8, Sky Road, McCormick Road, Marcoux Road, and Dorney Road, those are the ones that I think that will fit in our budget for this year, to sum it up. And then if I have more money, I'll keep on working down the list. Something that we hadn't mentioned there is actually those two sections of Concession 5 and Aberdeen Road are don't need to be asphalt. They're essentially rural sections that have deteriorated, and we'd better maintain as a gravel road. So we'd probably actually want to pulverize those two. That still costs a little bit of money, but not that much. And then we'd just move on to the next ones. So essentially, I would predict that we'd be done those, and then next year we'd be doing Loch Garry, the big sections on Loch Garry, then Gore, McCrimmon, Kenyon Dam Road. But I really only anticipate this year of doing Kenyon Concession 8, which we really need to do, or we're going to waste that free money that we got last year. Sky Road, we really have to do it. They are doing it as to our standards, but to maintain that good relationship with our neighbors, we should really make sure we go and do that. It does fit in with this program perfectly, so it works. Then McCormick, Marcoux, and Dorney would be the next ones.
Go ahead.
So, for example, Concession Road 4, how many years until that would get attention?
So it depends on your budget and how much we want to put towards it. So if we're doing 1.3 this year, then it's essentially comes down to the number of kilometers. So if you look at Loch Garry, there's about 5 kilometers there. So if you add those numbers up, we'd do about 10 kilometers per year. So I'd probably say it wouldn't be next year, might sneak into the year after, but for sure the year after that. Just my quick calculations on those numbers there.
Yeah, I'm not sure that road will last that long, but anyway. Yeah, I think it's going to be a problem.
I think we may have to, I mean, I'm in complete agreement on this year's, what we're doing, but I think we have to look at future years or whatever, and we may have to adjust this list a little bit, because.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, because some road will degrade quicker than another one, and, you know.
Yeah, and I don't think that the far end of the fourth there, I don't think that's gonna last for.
But if you look at that, concession 4 that's a whole year's of 1.6 million, 1.65 million.
Yeah.
Oh, 807, sorry, 807.
Yeah, I know.
And further to that, we've been going and completing the traffic counts, which is helping us with our priority, and we are doing a lot more inspections in-house. So this list will come back year after year, and it will be different depending on what, you know, that year is looked at. Because what we do is we take the priority and we take the condition, and we times 2 together to get the actual, you know, what's the best place we can put our money to go and get an improvement.
Is part of that, Tim, is part of that the amount of money we're spending on patching holes? Does that get included in there too? Because I know there was a ton of money spent on the fourth last year or whatever, patching
Yes.
all that stuff.
Yeah, so actually that's one of the things that you'll see when we go a little bit more into operations is I've actually pulled things that were getting charged to capital and had habitually been charged to capital and put it in operating.
Okay.
So we can really track that more.
Thank you.
It's just a big department and it's always hard to catch those things, right?
Okay.
Councillor Massey.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like, just taking a road, for example, like concession 5. So we did that 5, 6, 7 years ago, I don't remember,
probably 7.
yeah, not too long ago. So what you're gonna do there is, are you gonna pulverize it or just asphalt on top?
This program is just to asphalt on top. So
Okay.
essentially what we do is we kind of do a slurry and we get a level surface and then we put a layer on top.
Okay.
And
Okay, so any imperfections in the road that was not attended to back then, like you guys check that there's nothing that's gonna break everything again?
So we do, like, that's the thing. We think that there will be settlement and cracks over time. This is a short-term solution, but a longer-term solution than going and pulverizing and putting another LCB treatment down.
Okay, so let's say the fifth, just for example, so let's say the fifth, it's in relatively good shape now. So so if, let's say we didn't touch the fifth this year, then it would disintegrate, then it would be much more costly in 3 years to rebuild than what we're doing right now.
Sort of. So essentially, one of the things we got to look at is timescale. And I apologize because I'm always thinking in a road's timescale, which is 100 years. Okay. So these improvements will give us improvements that will last in the span of 10 years, right? So it buys us enough time to get everybody to a good level of service and then go around and start. While keeping this level of service, we've got to keep on bandaging. We can also start doing some rebuilds. And if you go down, what actually might explain this better is if you scroll down, or it might be up actually, sorry. Yeah, scroll up to page 74 in the document, page 75 yes. So what I'm looking to do, this is sort of essentially how I want to work on it, is for the first 3 years, knock out the roads that are completely subpar and unacceptable, right? And get it back on top of those roads, and then start, if you see how the budget switches between 2026 and 2027, from $1 million into the LCB foundations into half between LCB foundations and HCB roads. that essentially what it lets me do is go and start the HCB roads. You got to think of that as a proper rebuild, right? We're really taking it so that isn't going to be a recurring problem anymore. The LCB foundations is bandaging the wound, where we're putting a Band-Aid on. It'll give us, it's a good Band-Aid. It'll give us 10 years, and in the short term, people will be very, very happy. And it also gives us a structure. So once we come back around to go and work on that road again, when we pulverize, we have some material there to work with, right? Because at the moment, when we pulverize, the material is essentially useless, right? I can't do anything with it. But now we've got some material, and the counties has been experiencing a similar situation on a larger scale, is that the roads that they're quite happy with are roads that have had overlays instead of pulverize and repave. It hurts me a little bit as an engineer to not take it up, dig it out, put in engineered fill, and then put the road back on top, but it's not realistic for a small municipality to go and do that everywhere. So essentially that's what you got to think. We're bandaging the wound. We're going to keep on bandaging for the next 3 years, and then we're going to go and start doing surgery while still doing a little bit of bandaging, right? Because we're still not at the end there. Once we reach 2033, we're just working on our HCB roads, right? And then that should really bring our budget really in line. Like, we really should be able to, I know it's very optimistic, but projecting 10 years out, like, we should be at $500,000 to go and maintain our road, considering a bunch of that money is in our own operating budget, where we're doing our own crack sealing, we're doing our own patching with hot mix, right? That's our overall strategy, and it's difficult to project, yes.
I like it. It's a good strategy, I think. But what happened to buttering?
I tried not to use that term because I thought it wasn't.
Now, did you not say slurrying, or?
Yes.
Yeah, he tried a new one. I prefer buttering than slurry.
I think you had a good thing going there.
We can call it buttering, for sure.
Further questions on that? Yeah, go ahead.
And this is more for anybody that's watching, just so they understand this and make sure that I'm correct in this. The other trick with what you're proposing here, as far as the band-aiding of the low-cost roads, is that those can be maintained with the crack sealing and with the pothole filling on the hot mix, right?
Yep.
So we can treat it essentially as a high-class road to maintain it in a good shape. Whereas we've had the discussion, the double surface treatments right now, you can't do anything with them. You put in a fill for a pothole and it's gone again in a day because there's nothing there for it to adhere to. This leaves us something to adhere to, and we maintain roads.
That's exactly correct, and thank you for bringing that up, because for example, our crack sealing, our router, so we go and route the crack so it doesn't propagate more. If you do that on a chip seal road, it will just blow the whole thing out. There's no structure to work on. So, thank you.
I don't think you really helped the people out there to understand that, but because I barely understood what you were saying. So
that's you.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so we're at roads. Was there any more questions on that? Okay, so now we're at roads administration on page 78.
Thank you. So, so we've got our aggregate resources. So we get some money from the quarries. This is a lot of our funding. We're anticipating some student grants. We sold that equipment. And that recoverable is what we get from the counties as well for working on some of the roads for them.
Does anybody see anything in revenues or expenses that you'd like to ask a question? I'll give you a sec to look through. Yep.
Sorry, did you want me to go through expenses now?
No.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mike.
Just first line in expenses, I was just curious about the wages, as far as the difference there. And again, till December 18th, but it just seemed huge.
No, that's fine. So there was, if you remember, there was a initiative undertaken by the previous treasurer, which I'm very encouraging of, which is to essentially take the wages, part-time wages, overtime benefits, and insurance from being split up over, if you go down, there's over bridges, and then there's road maintenance, and then there's sidewalk, and then there's those ones, and essentially consolidate it all up so you can see it all in one line item. Because it's, if we want to look at the detail of what we're spending on each, how much wages we're spending on sidewalks, I track that with daily reports from the foreman, which I can collate. I apologize, there's about 1,000 reports for me to go through and collate that data, and I'm looking to move it to digital, but I do have that and can go through it. And so what's happened this year is, I guess it was essentially budgeted as if it was all going to come out of the same pot, but then it was still split. So if you go and look at the other ones, you can see the actuals are still there. And I think it was just about when she left and communications to the other staff and that sort of thing, but it all balances out. And so in 2024, it's all here. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, we're moving to bridges. So we have anything in expenses?
I'll mention here that we didn't get the bridges contracted services is bridge washing and concrete sealing, which we did not get done this year. But we'll plan again.
Go ahead.
We're talking about doing Dominion and Bishop this year, are we not?
Capital.
And capital.
Expenses in road maintenance? Expenses in sidewalks?
I'll point out there was some miscoding a little bit in sidewalks. There was some more work done, and it accidentally went under a different line item. But
It went under what?
it went under roads, maintenance, material supplies.
Okay.
Yeah. That's in-house work, so it's not,
Right.
not huge.
Anything in expenses under loose top maintenance? Anything in expenses under hard top maintenance? Yes, go ahead.
Just a quick one. Sweeping and cleaning, is that because of counties having equipment? Okay.
There is, the counties they're great, but they're very slow at billing. So there is a incoming payment or bill for the autumn sweeping.
Okay, I'm just looking at it going down year over year from 30 to 10. Okay, that's awesome.
Okay. Anything in plowing and sanding? Anything in snow removal expenses? on page 82. Anything in storm sewer expenses? Anything in safety devices, page 83? If we hurry this up, we can get this done before Karma comes back. Anything in streetlights? Yep, go ahead.
I don't know if I'm wrong, but I think I mentioned this every.
All those in favor of accepting the budget as is?
There we go. Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Massey.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just the street lights, the bill for hydro, I remember before we went to LED, I think it was $150,000 a year. Could that be correct?
Oh, was
Yeah,
that these?
so just every year I see that number and I'm happy to see that we save 75,000 a year, just the streetlights.
Okay. Moving on to the rare plant. Let's look at revenues. Anything, is this our last budget for rare, ever?
Maybe.
It better be. Let's go out with a bang. I got nothing. Okay, under expenses, so we're looking at revenues and expenses, page 84. Anything in rare? Yeah, go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, what's the rental leasing equipment? 3010 at 32 grand.
So we have a long-term lease of the loaders there at Rare, and I think they're actually running out this year, which is good.
Okay. Moving on to landfill, revenue and expenses. And on the revenue side of the garbage and recycling charge, did we go up a percentage?
No, that was an audit of records that we conducted, and as part of doing the new contract, and we found a lot of residents who weren't paying the fee, so we
Okay.
put it onto their bill, and that's
Excellent.
the increase, yeah.
Okay. Anything in expenses? Have we noticed any, with the enforcing the 2-bag limit, have we seen a decrease in what's going to La Flèche?
I actually haven't reviewed that recently, but the numbers would indicate that we actually have an increase slightly to La Flèche. Although actually that's probably just because that contract number increased. So I think our tonnage is very similar, but I can report on the actual. We get
It'd
the
just
weigh
be-
scales. So
You get to,
We've had a 2-bag limit for a long time.
yeah, but they were picking up everything.
yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Did you already forget about Garbage Gate? That's what my family was calling it every time. How's going to Garbage Gate?
You know, it's just a public meeting.
Oh, I know. I've already said bad things about my family. Do you want me to put my sunglasses on? So nothing else in rare expenses? Oh, sorry, landfill? Moving on to waste collection, revenue and expenses. Large item pickup, revenue and expenses. Yep, go ahead.
The, under waste expenses, is the recycling contracted services, what?
So
What is
that, sorry, through you, Ms. Mayor, yes, so that increase represents the new contract. It's, we're still pretty happy with where it ended up sitting, considering that the next lowest bidder was for waste contracted services was $658,754 per year. And then for recycling, instead of $200,215 was $437,361.
So a $500,000 difference, more than that.
And looking around at other contracts that have happened recently, and who then, maybe accepted a lower bidder and then didn't have quite the right contract documents and had to go renegotiate with other, other companies, we are really doing quite well. We're paying significantly under the average for our garbage and recycling pickup. So.
Well, good news story there. That's good. Just back to Rare for 1 second. Do we have any outside clients at Rare, or is it just North Glengarry?
Just North Glengarry. Oh, sorry, we do get some commercial, some is outside of North Glengarry, not municipalities, but actual commercial businesses, which is great because that's all pre-sorted. So it's like printing money. It's great.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to drain maintenance, revenues and expenses. Go ahead, Councillor Massey.
Yeah, thank you. On the line 4010, like the first line, is that normal that we are low on revenue on that side, or?
So the municipal drains are essentially use it, not fee-based, but they essentially all the work is paid by the people who benefit from the drainage. So it varies year by year depending on what work we're actually doing.
So if it's high on the expenses,
okay.
it's high on the revenue.
Okay, so I see, okay, so if you look at the total expense or whatever, less the.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. Yeah, good.
Anybody else on anything in drainage maintenance? Drainage loans, which is an in and out. All right, capital budget bridges. What?
If I may,
Yep.
the municipal drain maintenance budgeted at 200,000, came in at 65.
We just discussed that.
We did?
It's whatever expenses that it's an in and an out almost.
Oh,
So if it's a high year in revenues, it's a high year in expenses.
okay, I missed that.
So if you look up on top at the actuals, the numbers are both low compared to
Oh,
what
I
was
see.
budgeted.
Okay, thank you.
Capital, so 2024, Bishop Street Bridge, 15,000 on 17th Bridge. 1.2 million Dominion Street South Bridge, and $1 million of bridge engineering. What's that? What did I say? 1 million?
I thought maybe we'd make it this year. We didn't.
No, yeah.
So close.
And, yeah, so that's it. So questions on that, on capital? And have we tendered out the two, the Bishop Street and the the Dominion? No.
Not yet, but the tender's all prepped, so essentially, we're just waiting for this meeting and then we're gonna put it out.
Yep, go ahead.
17th Bridge, that just for consultant or engineer report or something?
Yeah, and anything related to that,
Okay.
an allowance essentially.
Okay, good.
Anything on capital? Bridges? Everybody's good? Okay. Moving on to capital landfill, well compliance upgrades and MOE requirements, 25,000, 65. Ten-year capital on the department roads, hardtop and other roads now combined. So that's where we have the municipal parking lots, geotechnical, stormwater management plan, spring gravel. It's nice to see the gravel budget going up. Or did you take something out of somewhere else?
That's just the increased cost of gravel.
Wow. Culvert relining, crossing on industrial, GDHS, sidewalk maintenance program. And then we already did the roads and needs study, right? That's what we've done. And then La Hill garage roof way at the bottom. I can't remember, is that a flat roof? Yeah.
What's the roads and needs study?
The one we went through where he told us what we were gonna be doing. Yep.
Okay.
Any questions? Go ahead.
I don't know if this is the time to bring this up or not, but I'm thinking about the the Alexandria Main Street project, the complete redevelopment of, and the fact that it's going to cost us a pretty penny, and we haven't discussed our strategy around how we're going to make that happen.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So there is, once we get to water, because our largest component there is the replacing the water and wastewater infrastructure, we've carried some amount there to help with the design phase of that.
So that's yeah, but you mean paying for it or paying for the design?
For the design, yeah. The only way that we're going to be able to get that project done is through grants, and so that's what we've put that together so we can get shovel ready for that program. We actually just met with the counties last week on that, but yeah.
Okay. I'm just wondering if we should be somehow or another putting something
I
in
guess
reserves.
I don't disagree, but it's not.
It's not the year.
But we do
The other-
have
the
$1
other-
million from the sale of land that we could use.
Yes, and my hope is with Maureen now, the CAO of the county, is my hope and my requirement pretty much is that any grants that the county applies for should include our portion as well. Right? So it shouldn't be two separate projects.
Should be
It's one project.
Yeah.
So if there's streetlights that are our responsibility, if there's infrastructure in the ground, the hydro lines, all of that stuff should be one project. And then the funding should be split accordingly, right? So if the county's going to apply for a grant that's 75%, or whatever it might be, that we should benefit from that as well. It shouldn't be a separate project.
And could we do the same thing? We were applying, well, I mean, can we both apply for a grant?
No, what she's
It would
saying
make more
is
sense to
it'll
put the
just
whole thing
be-
together.
It'll just be one project.
Just one?
One project.
One project, we apply for the whole amount, and then when it comes down to it, say, let's just it's $8 million to the county, $2 million is our portion, but we're only covering 75, we have to pay our 25% of the 2 million.
Yeah,
I
makes
think it's, yeah, and I think it's a little bit, we don't know what the amounts are, we don't know the timelines. I understand, Deputy Mayor, that we would like to put some money away, but right now, we don't know how much, and with everything else that's coming up, I think there's
Yeah.
other projects that should
Yeah,
come in.
I know it's going to be, like Ben Hahn says, that it'll be by far the biggest project that the counties has ever
Ever
done.
done,
yes.
So
Agreed.
that means it's going to be a lot of money.
Right, and Tim and I are constantly, it's on the list of things that I speak to Maureen about, that he
Great.
speaks to Ben about, and Mike and everybody, so
Good.
it's never gonna be something that's not on our list.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure it's on the radar.
Okay, so everybody's good with capital? Okay, next is Waterworks. Go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to mention that so Waterworks operating, one of the major things is that the water treatment and water distribution lines have been combined. Because that was essentially, it mostly came into trouble when we were working on the overheads. So you'd be, stationary for water distribution or water treatment, and it's, Angela has 3 pens, and which one gets billed to distribution, which one gets billed to treatment. It seemed a little silly, so those line items were combined. It reflects a little bit strangely inside the operations budget, but it all balances out to zero at the end because it's fee paid. So that's just why you might see some of the some unusuality in the operating budget. Apart from that, there's no major changes.
Okay, so we are in Waterworks, water, so revenues and expenses. And did we go up our typical amount?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Just one question, Mr. Mayor. On the expense side, the coagulant, that the only one that stuck out is that doubled in price like crazy, the coagulant?
Yes, so coagulant did increase in price. I did think, can you give me the line item for that one, sorry?
It's, it's 2115.
2115.
Budgeted
Missing
for
one.
60 and,
2150, oh, there we go. On
Was that in
water
there?
treatment, that's right.
Yeah, and we spent 115 and 223.
yeah, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I believe that one's just purely the increase in the price of the coagulant across the board.
It's down like another page. But without it, that coagulant, I love drinking coagulant, it's very good.
Angela will bring a report very, very early before March because we're trying to get a little bit more on top of the QMS, and you'll actually be able to see our coagulant use, and if anything, it's actually dropped, and yeah. It's not how it works.
Okay, sorry. Anything else on North Glengarry water treatment? Michael? No, you didn't have your hand up, sorry. Okay, moving down to wastewater. Page 98. Nothing? Okay, moving down to capital. Lots of little things going on.
Do you want me to go through and explain
Sure.
these projects? So we've got, the first line item is leak detection. So we found some really good equipment that Perth actually has had a lot of success finding breaks. So that should actually mean that the more of the water that we're putting out actually reaches users and doesn't get wasted. We have our normal valve and hydrant replacement, our normal water meter replacement program. We should get that wrapped up by 2025. We're now just in the very small, difficult parts to do. Then we've got process equipment upgrades. That's equipment in the treatment plant. Then we've got the Glen Robinson Water Treatment Building needs an expansion so that it's really just expanding the physical building so that we can better maintain and look after the equipment inside there. Then we've got the water main refurbishment that's planned on Dominion. We need to finish off the water model and get that capital plan out. We've got this is a fairly exciting one that you'll see a complete report on is the filling station. So one of the parts for water loss is that we do have a bit of a honor system for contractors who are buying water for us to fill up pools and that sort of thing. So we can't always have a water operator present while that's filling, and a lot of these contracts have been using for a long time. So really our biggest problem with that is that the water loss could be coming from there, maybe like it doesn't get shut off properly or whatever, or it could just be an accounting issue. So the filling station would essentially let people come up to the filling station and fill up a large water truck or even little water bottles with municipal water, and you can pay with credit card or whatever it is at the filling station. So fully automated, and then we know we're not having any water loss from that section.
When that's going to be up, is there a way to ensure that where they're filling up now doesn't keep getting used?
So it will go where they're filling up now. So
No, I know, but there's a few hydrants that I've seen other people fill up their truck from those hydrants that are back in somewhere.
yeah.
So those hydrants are going to be locked down?
Exactly.
Okay, good.
The only people who should be filling up this will actually pave the way for a hydrant bylaw, which will let us mean that really the only people using the hydrants are fire or waterworks. Then we've got a locator unit, and then we're putting some money aside for the Main Street redevelopment project to make sure we get the design that we need.
Any questions on any of those? Okay, wastewater?
So we've got sewer flushing and CCTV. This is something that we do we do it 2 years in a row, and then we take a break for 2 years essentially. So 2024, 2025, and then we do it again in 2028, 2029. The Alexandria wastewater plan that EVB has been working on for a few years now is finally essentially complete. I just completed my review and sent it back to them to put the blessing on. And essentially, we're going to use that. So the sewer lining program there, the 196, we haven't actually figured out exactly where that's going to go yet. But that will be based on that essentially 10-year capital plan that comes out of that from EVB, and it's aimed at reducing our infiltration, which should give us more capacity. They are still working on the Maxville portion of that report, and that should be due in June. So they just pulled the flow. That's one of the major delays for that type of project, is we're waiting for data from the flow meters. And so you need a 1 in 5 year storm event, so you can actually calibrate that properly. And because during your major storm events, that's when you get the infiltration, right? So hopefully the recent weather has given us that storm event. When I went to meet with them last week, they said the engineer was just pulling the data. So hopefully that all works out. We should have it for Maxville as well very soon. We're continuing with the sludge removal from the lagoon. Alexandria, we brought a report last year for that contract. And then we've got the geotechnical was completed for the Alexandria Lagoon in 2023, and now that 150,000 is to refine that design, try and bring the overall cost of construction down, and try and make sure that it's something that we can really have shovel ready and achievable to build. And then we've got the EA for the Maxville Lagoon that I had brought a report about, $250,000, which we're very excited for. And then we've got some pumping station upgrades. So that's in there from the capital plan from EVB. That's essentially an early item that I wanted to make sure we got in here. That other 196 is also based off that capital plan. I just don't have the final document, essentially. That's it.
Questions? All right.
Sorry, EVB will come to council as well to present that plan.
That's the end of page 101. So we'll have a recap on what was cut and where we're at.
So I have a reduction in website hosting in the admin department of 5,000, increase in the expenditure for the roof at the office here of 60,000 to be taken from the reserve, so zero tax implication. A reduction in the tennis courts at the Dome of 34,000, which comes from, the total of that is 45, but 34 of it is tax base, and the reduction of 27,000 of the ATV. So that reduces us to 4.05%.
You like that, eh, Jeff? Everyone good with that? You don't want to go through the whole budget again? Just see if we can find 0.06 to get into 399?
There's Jacob's calling.
Oh, let's touch that. No?
You were not here?
You know what, if you want, I'll go into your office and listen to the whole presentation. Okay? Any further comments or questions? Again, if you have anything that you saw, I know you guys took some notes on some things, but if there's anything else that you see like that kind of out of whack from last year, don't hesitate to contact them and get that so that we're ready to go on to approve the budget on the next meeting. Okay, motion to adjourn, Councillor Massey.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Martin. There being no further business to discuss, the meeting was adjourned at 1:35 p.m.
Thank you, and just before we adjourn, just thank you to Sarah and Zoe for putting the budget together, and thank you to all the senior staff for getting everything in. I know it was a tough year for a budget, and I thank you guys for sharpening your pencils, and just thanks to council for a pretty smooth day. It went pretty good, so I'm happy that where we are, and yeah, so that's it. So all those in favor of the motion? Carried, none opposed. Thank you, everyone.